for hosting this or bringing this on. And again, thanks to Kent and everybody in DGI staff for helping us organize this and get it going. And again, the GIS team, uh, there's a lot of little things behind the scenes that we all do to make sure this happens. But this is really exciting to me because this is the place where you get to talk to your great friends and peers. And I've already learned something today that's going to be very valuable that we're going to come back and apply. So don't miss this opportunity to network, learn things from each other, and ask questions. Let's make sure that we get the most out of this we can. All right. Okay. So first off, sorry, my view kind of switched on me. It's okay. So first off, we have bathrooms right around the corner if you haven't found them. If you go down the first hallway closest to here, you will find quiet rooms, and next to the nameplate will tell you it's a KAMP quiet room. So we've got two small rooms available to you. If you need to, have a quiet space or take a call or something like that, you're very welcome to it. And again, down that same hallway, the first two back rooms will be the seating for lunch. And also, again, if you want to do a larger group chat during break or whatever, then that's fine. So just want you to be aware. Now let's talk a little bit about safety. Why is it not progressing? Bless my heart. Okay, it's going to be a little bit interesting. Okay, there we go. So in case of a fire, you'll go out the immediate back door, and then you have to loop around through the parking garage. And then the rally point is in the front of the parking garage area. So you'll see the mass of people, but let's all do that if in case of a fire where we have to evacuate. I know this seems kind of tedious, but people don't plan emergencies, and it would be much better to have a clear plan and make sure that we're all safe because y'all are important than for us to take this for granted. In case of a tornado, hope we don't have one. Again, you would exit back to kind of where the meeting rooms are, the seating area, so that again, that is a safe area tornado shelter. I need 2 volunteers. So 2 volunteers. Okay. Jack and Emily. Jack and Emily, I need y'all to go up. Designate for 911 call. So Jack, you're the primary. Emily, you're the backup to that. Good. Okay. You see the guidance there. I need 2 volunteer guides. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting your name. And you? I'm sorry. Okay. Y'all 2, you'll go to the front desk where the front desk is. One of you will designate or will communicate to the first responder there to come. The other person needs to stay and wait for fire department or other emergency services that come and then guide them to the person in need. Okay. So let's again all work together to make sure everybody's safe. Finally, I just want to remind y'all, we don't do this because of GIS. We do this to make a difference for people. So let's keep that in mind and appreciate it. So now I'm very excited to announce Geri Grisby, our keynote speaker, a career public servant, a UK player and a fan, and also, again, tremendous history here in Kentucky, doing things in all kinds of places. And again, here at KYTC, she's contributed greatly here, and now she's working for finance. So without further ado,
Thank you, Will, very much. I think the picture with the net that was not here in this building, but still have to maintain a little bit of a dress code in the job that I have now. But anyway, so good to be here today. Will and we go back a few years. When I was at Transportation Cabinet, I had a couple stints there, so it's great to see you. Anyway, welcome everyone to Frankfurt and this KAMP State of the State Annual Meeting. The program today will focus on the work being done by our GIS staff across the executive branch. Presentations will recognize their efforts, call attention to how GIS supports their agencies, and provide insights into how GIS is being used for things you might not have considered. GIS staff and state government do consequential work every day that helps our leaders make more informed decisions. We experienced and we had some good news this past session. I know people are probably familiar with, they say that legislation is kind of like watching sausage being made. Canada's nodding, but we had a good result in this past year's the biennial budget bill, which awarded the Kentucky From Above program $6 million each year, which was fantastic news for us. Yes. This appropriation provides resources necessary to begin the implementation of a regular 3-year refresh cycle, which better aligns with the needs of our Kentucky communities. Our Commonwealth of Technology, Office of Technology, will use the funds to acquire leaf-off aerial photography for 2/3 of the state, starting in the east. And that's not because I'm from Eastern Kentucky. That's just what we're doing, right, KAMP? And progressing towards the west. Consistently updated aerial photography is a foundational component of a shared digital base map that meets the needs of stakeholders in the public and private sector. Sharing this critical data resource in the public domain ensures every unit of government across Kentucky, think about that, every unit of government, regardless of its size, location, or tax base, to have direct access. I think that is really awesome. Kentucky From Above's open data distribution policies, coupled with this economies of scale approach to acquisitions, compounds the Commonwealth's return of this investment. I can tell you that, we observe whether in the state or nationally and funds being used for this and that. I personally think the $6 million a year is a pretty good deal for everyone, every citizen, all of us in this room. In closing, I want to express our gratitude to the many agency GIS staff who create, manage, analyze, and share their GIS data layers. This noteworthy level of collaboration and willingness to share data across agency lines powers our enterprise GIS databases, supports a wide range of executive branch business processes, and puts dozens of layers at the fingertips of first responders. Kentuckians don't realize how fortunate they are to have this strong cooperative GIS community. Your work directly impacts their health and well-being. And I want to just thank each and every one of you. I've been a lifelong public servant. My late father was a teacher. I loved education. I've been in either federal and state government, and to me, it's a worthy cause. I think it's just a calling to ultimately be helping people and helping each other. So thank you for each and every one of you. You all play a part. No one can do this. Nobody can do this by themselves. We all need each other. And so thank you from me and on behalf of Secretary Johnson and the Finance Cabinet. Thank you very, very much. And Kent, I'm going to turn it over to you. If okay, I'm going to stick around a while.
Go for it.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
Just minimize it instead of close it.
No, this isn't mine. Where are they?
Should already be running. What are you doing? Quit it. There we go.
All right. Thank you, Deputy Secretary. We appreciate that. No. Okay,
It's
well,
not cooperating. That's not nice. Best laid plans, mice and men. Spinning over. Oh, there we go. Do it old school. That's not what it's supposed to do. Sorry, folks.
there's interesting roles here, Will. Zoom jockeys, chat wranglers, mic runners. It's good stuff.
I had a plan. There we go. But it's not showing you the notes.
I don't need notes.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Just telling you that.
Okay. There we go. You may have, I don't, if you hit the space bar, it may go over. I have to fix it now.
Okay. Okay, good stuff. Little intro here in terms or relating to the appropriation that we received through the General Assembly. Reached out to a few of the folks who were very instrumental in promoting this program. Ben Shinneberry from QK4 talking about how his surveyors use the data. There's some surveyors here in the room today. Another one, Tricia. I think Tricia's in here. She's waving back there. Thanks for providing this testimonial as well. Of course, Logic, they have a need for very high quality data for the work they do there in their 3-county region, and her testimonial is right on target. And then also from David Carter, CDP, not this David Carter, but another one, CDP MapSync. And I think this one's interesting because what he's talking about here is how they use it for infrastructure. And I don't know how many of you all looked at the budget, but they put a lot of money into infrastructure. All of these projects that they're going to be building, water, sewer, transportation, will take advantage of these data sets. So, they kind of go hand in hand. You're not going to do one without the other. And I think this testimonial is very important. All right, quick program overview and a KY from above update. I'm going to give you a few more details. Boyd Shearer, our new assistant director, is going to give the State of the State address this year. Meg Henderson from State Board of Elections, 120 to 1, creating a statewide Kentucky precinct data set. Folks, this is, I mean, Kim and I for years really understood the importance of trying to get this data set out there, get this data set built. And to see what Meg's accomplished in such a short period of time is very impressive, very outstanding. Rebecca Ramsey, Kentucky Forest Recovery after the tornadoes. I think you're going to see some novel use of some data sets here, some interesting approaches to using data for something that you might not have thought about. Very good. They're not. So you got to use the down button, not the right button. Okay. Covering Kentucky yesterday, today, and tomorrow, Rick Wallace. I think he's going to talk about LiDAR and aerial photography in Kentucky. Mapping the parks, how GIS powers Kentucky state parks. Danielle and Josh. I think this is an interesting thing. You know, Josh is kind of on the asset management side of things over there, and Danielle's their new GIS person. Once again, man, you know, not all of us get to map cool data like they do at parks and fish and wildlife, but I think this will be a neat thing to see. And then again, this year we have Jean-Luc Dobson back from EEC, turning data into direction, EEC GIS updates. They've had some organizational changes over there and so forth. He's going to talk about that. And then lastly, Lucas Graham from our team is going to talk about Kentucky from Above's oriented imagery layer. No longer do you have to use the KY from Above Explorer to interact with oblique imagery. You can do it outside of that application now, and he's going to show you all how that can be done. All right, a little update here. House Bill 500, 26th regular session, included a $12 million appropriation, as the Deputy Secretary said. That is 6 each year, and that is sufficient funding to cover new aerial photography for 2/3 of the state. There's also some LiDAR seed funding in there. And this is very important as we were really worried about being able to continue our LiDAR collection efforts. Flights to commence next flying season, and the planning process is now underway. So phase 4 imagery planning. That's preliminary, folks. Those lines may change, but this is kind of what we're looking at right now. As we said, east to west, not because Geri's from the east, but because we're going to move from east to west. That's where we started last time. That's the oldest data. And once again, there is funding in there for the obliques and for the nadir images. Mother Nature's been challenging, and anybody who's in the acquisition industry can tell you that, especially here in Kentucky. It was a struggle for them to get the last set of flights done in the time frame they had, but somehow they did pull it off. Mother Nature ended up cooperating. Let's fingers crossed that in 27 and 28 we have the same level of cooperation. Just to bring you up to speed on where we are on phase 3 LiDAR, we did pick up 5 counties last year. Those were about 2,000 square miles. Yeah, about 2,000 square miles. Acquisition completed in mid-March is when they let us know that the flights were done and all the data was accepted. I think we're now at about 20%, 18.7% complete. And what we need to do in the next 2 years is fill in that map. And this is what we're looking at right now. We're focusing on acquiring the oldest areas. Western Kentucky counties, the purchase area, Ohio River counties, very important from a flooding perspective. Preliminary AOI is about 8,500 square miles. Now, we intend to apply for USGS 3-depth funds. What you're seeing on the map now is the footprint we would have, assuming we get the amount of funds that they would normally match, okay? If they don't give us that amount or there's any other issues with funding, what we're going to have to do is kind of eat back at that a little bit, and we'll start up there in Gallatin, Owen, Carroll, and kind of pull those back because those are a little newer. And then, but probably the stuff in Western Kentucky and the logic, that's pretty solid. Also exciting, phase 2 elevation derivatives. You know, phase 2 was complete. This took a while, but contour production is complete. If you've ever created contours for any large area, doing it for a whole state, not a small lift. 10, 20, and 40-foot are done for the respective areas. 5-foot contours statewide are complete. Don't rush out there and download it unless you want to take 100 gigs of space up on your hard drive. Spot elevations, new ones, awesome, good, really good stuff. All of this is in feature layers on ArcGIS Online. Vector tile layers. Folks, that's how you want to access this data. That's how you want to access these contours is vector tile layers. They'll stream in, they'll be fast, and you won't be taking up space on your hard drive. If you are a glutton for punishment and you do want to go download it, go out there and go download it all. It's all out on Box. Boyd Shearer has put his thumbprint on the new KY Topo map series. Some really cool updates he's made. Those are all out there. Vector tile cache and cache, or vector tile and cache based maps have all been updated as well with this new phase 2 data. So good looking stuff. Broken record here. I'm gonna tell you things I've told you a million times, but I think this is things you don't need to forget. We own this data. Okay, you all own this data. There is no paywall. It's distributed in the public domain. Nobody's asking you for a password. Nobody's asking you for any money. You need the data. It's there. It meets or exceeds specifications. If you're a local community and you're having somebody fly your aerial photography or LiDAR, just ask them about ground control. Ask them about their surveyors. Just, are there any at all? Seamless. Infrastructure projects, emergencies, these things don't stop at county lines, okay? You've got to have seamless coverage, especially in a response event. It empowers the smaller communities. Deputy Secretary talked about that and the importance of it. It provides value to the private sector. You know, we did that community survey last year after this event. And the feedback in that community survey really underscored the amount of value that the private sector gets out of this stuff. Economies of scale savings because of our pricing structure. Once again, this is a high return on investment for these appropriated funds. So thanks to KAMP, thanks to CAPS, thanks to the GIAC for supporting us. And if there's anybody in this room who, you know, went out there on their own, talked to a legislator, talked to their leaders, we appreciate that as well. So, all right. Boyd, I will hand this over to you, and Will, you may need to assist in bringing up his presentation. Thank you all.
Thanks, Dave.
I go find mine. There it is. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ro. Thanks. Okay, thanks. Okay, good morning and thanks for being here. I'd like to thank the Deputy Secretary and KAMP for the intro and hosting the event, and of course Transportation Cabinet for hosting this event today. So what I want to do is talk about our enterprise GIS system, what we're running, where we're at, where we're going. But I thought I would do a little differently since I'm new. I started back in October, and I came in from an outside perspective. And I come in, and I want to share that perspective with you. So let's start here. And so what we're seeing here is one day I sat with Ian, and he shared his computer screen, and I noticed, excuse me, I noticed that I saw this grid of tiny screenshots. These are computer screens that he had access to. And I said, what, you go into these computers all the time? And he said, yeah, of course. And I was like blown away because this represents the enterprise footprint. The 20 or so servers that we access every day to support the enterprise GIS system. And these aren't servers in a corner in a room. You know, these are, this isn't a Commonwealth data center. You just don't log in. And so each of these represent a portion of the services you use every day. So let's do a quick tour. So I do this. Yeah, hit down arrow. Okay, no, so yeah, I got it. Okay. Okay, let's start with this first. Well, it's not showing up here.
Doesn't show on screen. Wait.
Yeah, so
So no, you're moving that.
Yeah.
So click out a pencil. Oops, wait a minute.
you have finger dance up here with the trackpad.
Okay, so now since things aren't selected now, your down arrow should work.
And do it again.
Oh, it's not. Okay,
Let's, and whoops. I just. Okay. Yeah, I think what's
I can do my PowerPoint. It's just not used to everybody else's.
so
But then it's already running, so you're into the slide master.
yeah, we're trying to be dramatic with the entry into the computers here. I can hit a little speed bump, but yeah, KY GIS survey, KY raster. Those are the workhorses or on-prem workhorse, 4 servers each, right? So if you've ever accessed a cache tab with Kent was talking about the new phase 2 elevation derivatives cache map, looks beautiful coming out of KY GIS server. You ever pull a vector layer, you're pulling it from KY GIS server, and that flows downstream to all the services that we offer, you know, and KY raster, now that's my favorite. I come from a background looking at raster, you know, pixels and image values, and that guy serves up all of the elevation data, the visualization, the derivative of that elevation data for your everyday business use, as well as not just here in the state, but before I came to the state, I was using it for my own personal mapping, because those high resolution, not that presentation. Because the high resolution phase 2, now we're starting phase 3, it's the same resolution, but those hill shades, those multi-directional hill shades are so great, so nice, make it for a great phase. I'll show something. Hey, thanks, Phil.
Sorry, we're in. Let's try and get over here. Okay, there we go. I think if you hit this space bar,
That's
that's
spacebar. Okay. Yes. Okay. Dude, thank you, Will. Okay, like I said, we have our on-prem workhorses. These do the heavy lifting of the data services that you guys and people across, you know, that access our data use. And so whenever you pull an image from KY raster, you know, you're pulling the actual data, right? And what's cool is you can pull and do analysis and get highest and lowest elevation. But if you want to create, and this, I thought this was so cool, was that when you do get a hillshade, or you do get a slope map, or you get some derivative, or you want to project a vector layer to Web Mercator, all this is done on the fly at the server level. So that minimizes storage on our part, right? So we can have many derivatives from one layer offered to the public. And so now looking at that, so looking just at the service since January through April, 500 million plus requests. Now, if you extrapolate out, that's going to be over 1 billion this year. That was more than the previous year. So these services are being used. Not just that, 95% of our public facing on-prem, all the hardware that we have, all the requests, 95% go to these two collections of servers. Next, let's look at Portal. KYGIS Portal, that is our internal web GIS. It requires an executive branch login, and today it has more than 250 users with over 2,000 items, and that helps with interagency collaboration, business processes that need to be completed internally. And so we support that. 4 servers apiece. We just went through an upgrade. Esri tends to do those occasionally, and so we executed an upgrade successful. And so we're now operating at 11.5 enterprise. Now let's look at this line here. Now, if these screens had a pulse and had a heartbeat, and you could see it, you would see it in this line here. These three spatial databases. That's our golden record, right? These hold the authoritative data that we talk about, and directed by Kentucky statute, right? We collect data and keep it in these spatial databases as our golden record. And these are the ones that feed all the downstream data services on KYGIS server. Most of this data, I'll point out, we didn't create, but we steward it, and metadata ensures, we steward the data and we ask for your data, right? Other agencies, hey, we can take your data, but what we want to point out is metadata ensures that we can meet the demands of all users. And without metadata, even the most accurate and precise data becomes confusing to outside users. Speaking of outside users, well, how do they come to our data? Well, we have our public web servers. That's our front door. And we have our standalone production apps, right? So if you go to Kentucky Explorer and look at our oblique imagery, we have fish and wildlife, we have parks and cities. A lot of different apps are hosted on one of these on-prem servers. We also have a server for development in our playground. And it's also where we host our guidance in how to use our products, because it's getting complicated, and we have a lot of services that we support. And so those collection are on-prem, but we have data in the cloud. Kent mentioned Box. Well, you can go to Box and you can pull down everything we got. I mean, it would take a minute, right? And so we have about 40 terabytes on Box storage just as backup and as a service to folks if they want the underlying file geodatabase or the source data. 343 terabytes just of Kentucky from above on AWS, completely open, completely down. You can access this, and I believe some organizations do. They'll siphon that whole amount down. And of course, we have ArcGIS Online. We have our premium data store. 2 terabytes can hold a lot of vector data, and so that's our off-prem resource that is collectively part of our enterprise GIS. And so this guide is not dancing, but what it is, okay, cool. So, okay, it had to be dancing, right, in order for this to work. Okay, so hanging out with Kent, if you've ever looked over his shoulder when he was managing one of these servers, you're going to see this, and he's going to see a blink and a flashlight. Whoa, yeah, there it went. Something happened. Well, what did happen? Well, what we have is a request. This represents processors on one server, and a request is being made, right? Something is being fulfilled and delivered somewhere, right? And so as impressive as this computing setup is, it is very impressive, right? All the data we have in the compute, but it's all for naught, right? Unless we have two things. Data. Well, we have data, right? But data doesn't manifest itself. It doesn't act on its own. So what else do we need? People. People in this room, right? Now I'm preaching to the choir, right? But I think this bears reminding, right? And so it's people that make the observations, right? It's people who, beat here. It's people that make the observations, either with a handheld GPS or aerial sensors. It takes professionals to make good observations. You have to know your tools, your techniques, the time to do it, what you're observing. You have to know what to do. Next, it takes people to build knowledge, right? In this room, we have people building knowledge through mapping and analysis. And think about the agencies that do that, right? And so they are taking this raw data. And I'll ask you this. I've done this before, and I love this moment. You take two layers, two different observations, you stack them together, and you say, Eureka, I found something, right? And you then begin producing maps and reports and publishing. You've learned something. And now at that point, the next leg, of having people involved is that you need people to make informed decisions. From engineers to entrepreneurs to everyday citizens, right? They take this data and they live their lives and make these important decisions that impact other people and better the Commonwealth. Okay, so let's talk about open data since we're here. And what we have is LiDAR. We have 2 statewide coverages of LiDAR. And this is an incredible resource. And what I like to think about is that it sparks innovation, right? So it's an enormous potential and it's an enormous resource, these point clouds, right? And I like to imagine a high school student, let's say in Adair County, right? With tons of time and inspiration. Maybe she uses some AI sprinkled in there. You guys might have heard AI is coming around, but sits in her kitchen laptop and playing with some of this point cloud and discovers something new, a new way to look at the world, right? That is innovation. The point is, can come from anywhere, right? And open data is the fuel. Imagine if she didn't have access to this data. It also builds trust and collaboration, right? Open data does. Have you ever gotten a report, a map, and say, well, where's the underlying data? I want to reproduce this or analyze it or change it. All of our data and the maps that are derived from that are completely open. You can go and recreate any of these maps and derivatives as you like. Okay, so it also drives novel solutions, right? Open data does. First responders, right? That's important. We expect, that's one of the responsibilities of government, right? To keep citizens safe. They have a geospatial problem. Like, where's the emergency, right? So here we have NG 911 points, and we're supporting that, and it's open data, right? But imagine if it wasn't. It was just locked into, first response. So, but after a long disaster, and we have Rebecca will speak to this in her presentation, it's hard to predict what layer or attribute proves helpful in the recovery process. And she'll discuss novel ways of using open data to help communities recover from the devastating tornadoes in 2021. Okay, what about our open data? And so what are we doing with it? And so in this little section here, I think I'll go through some of the products and services we've created since the last State of the State. Kent has mentioned some. I'll go a little deeper, possibly. So this is big. So we're migrating to the cloud, right? We're migrating the golden record to the cloud, not leaving our on-prem golden record, but trying to sync it. And what that does is, as a feature layer hosted on AGOL, that leverages the whole ecosystem that Esri has for its multi-tier caching. And so it helps it be more discoverable, adds functionality. But there are challenges, right? Because if a layer updates quite a bit in the golden record, we want to make sure it maintains an update in the cloud, and that endpoint that's in the cloud always remains at the same spot. Through AGOL, we have some of our marquee layers now in the Living Atlas and in our imagery base maps. And so that's a big deal, right? Because Esri's product spans the world. We are controlling how Kentucky appears throughout the world in this way. And so we're hoping to put more and more of these marquee layers from our Kentucky from above into the Living Atlas. Okay, Lucas has a presentation today, but he also has something else he's working on, and it's really cool. So you guys, I'm sure you know geocoding. It's like, I got an address, where is it on the map, right? So we're used to, you type in an address and bink, it gives you a point on the map. It's on this street. You might know the county, the zip code. Well, imagine this. Imagine taking our golden record, a polygon, stacking them up, and being able to take all the attributes from these polygons and join it to that point. And so it's called polygon enrichment or geocoding enrichment. So what he's working on is being able to type in that address and then take these stack of polygons and return everything from school district, legislative district, voting precinct, census tract, quad name, image links, just, and the user on the end, of course, they would want to filter. But the point is they would have a lot more information from a simple address than they may have had before. Okay, so So this is cool here. So the incorporated city boundaries are hot and one of our most downloaded layers. Kevin maintains that layer, and in 2025 alone, he processed 115 updates across 37 counties, right? And that's Crab Orchard. It's a circle, but it has a long kind of tendril going down. You know, it's this odd shape and odd geometry, odd history, right? And so when you look at this layer has a wealth of attributes. So if you click on Crab Orchard, you're going to get a lot of attributes, right? And these attributes and unique geometries, they point to its national and historical significance. So if you click on that Secretary of State link, right, you'll I say no. Okay, hold up. I think we might be good. Thanks, Will, for the. Well, let's see if we hit the space bar.
It's supposed to be a hot link.
Well, it doesn't link out. It's just an image. And tap over here. It's changing.
It's changing on screen, but it's not changing.
Exactly.
There we go. Yep, now.
Oh, you got it.
Yeah.
So if you look at so if you click that Secretary of State link, it takes you to a list of all the changes that happened with Crab Orchard. Annexations, updates, and changes. But what I found is a founding document of Crab Orchard, 1849, scanned statutes incorporating Crab Orchard. So if you are of a particular mind of interest, you could really explore the history of these cities and how they grow, and also we have population estimates, right? So thanks, Will.
Sure.
These population counts, right? They go up to the US Census and they influence funding opportunities, grant opportunities. So this is truly a living layer, and I find it one of the more fascinating layers in our collection under our stewardship. Okay, Stack API. Ian developed this last year. He was working on for quite some time, and this is an amazing piece of technology, right? Stack stands for Spatio-Temporal Asset Catalog, and it aggregates all of the Kentucky from above assets by time and place. 9 classes that we have, phase 1, point cloud, dim, aerial imagery, 9 classes, 1 API. And so you go to the Stack browser and you can say, hey, give me this location or time, and it will allow you to pull the data. The data itself has been transformed too. It's cloud optimized. And so if you're in certain applications, you don't have to download the entire resource. It will stream it for you. So that is really a game changer in the open source community. And so on top of that, or in conjunction with that, we developed the Catalog Explorer, the Kentucky Front Catalog Explorer, which sits on top or uses the Stack API, and you can explore Kentucky. You click on a location, and that tile, because we have one tile that serves all of our Kentucky from above products, it will give you all of the imagery and assets available for that location. We also tied in a geoprocessing service server side that allows it to return the closest oblique image. So now you're getting all of the nadir imagery and LiDAR scans, but also the closest obliques, all in one return. And so that would be helpful to better access all of our data for a single location. Okay, Kent mentioned vector tiles. Okay, so we're seeing a future primarily built on vector tiles for base maps. Today's base maps, they're cache tile, and you see on the right, that's just, I zoomed into a lake. I'm gonna do a little trick here, or a subtle change. Hopefully you can notice. If you use a cached map service, it's pre-rendered on the server. You can't change it when it gets to your browser. And that's been the coin of the realm for years. I mean, it's for decades. Now, if you watch the lake, notice you see the Lake Hickman, the text. I'm going to rotate the map. Now, sometimes we like to rotate maps, though they say always got to be north, it's got to be page up. Sometimes we need to rotate our map. If you live in Lexington and notice how its grid, its streets are rotated, you understand. If you notice now, I rotated the lake, the text remains horizontal, you know, and so it's readable. So now we can orient our maps in our, you know, custom maps that we make up for online use, and not have to worry about labeling. And so that's a very pragmatic approach, or pragmatic opportunity. Now how does it do that? Why are vector tiles different? Well, the data in a vector tile is not rendered server side. It's sent to the browser as vectors with attributes, right? So you're getting the geometry and the attributes and saying, hey, browser, you render it. And because of that, you can say, browser, okay, I don't want that color balloon. I want a different color, right? You can change your styles on the fly. It's more bandwidth efficient. It looks gorgeous on HD screens. So as our pixel depth gets, you know, increases, it will stay as crisp on any resolution because it's vector. And here's the big one. No more weeks of caching, right? I mean, you know, the underlying raster, that will always have to be tiled. That is the hillshade, the aerial photography. You can't vectorize that. Wouldn't be efficient. But everything above it, if we have to make a change, transportation comes out with new roads or whatnot, boom, it's updated. Okay. Phase 2, Kent mentioned some of this, and I'll show some of the contours. Statewide contour, vector tile, it's amazing. You can bring it up. That's an example of the 5-foot contour. I mean, drop it on any map, and it is scale dependent. It will change. It's not like you'll zoom out and see all 5, you know, all contours in one view. It's selectively scaled. And then we have our custom spot elevations. Those we put some thought into, and we think they're useful. So those are on AGOL. Of course, the new edition of the Kentucky Topo Map series is in full production. It's on Box. You can download individual tiles. It's an image service. It's a cached map service. It should be on Avenza. We put them on Avenza maps, and it takes a while, but they should be able to download directly to your phone to use in the field offline if you use that app. And so it basically phase 2, fresh contours, updated hydro, that kind of set us back a bit, and current roads in a slightly modernized style pattern. Okay, we have phase 2, DSM. Ian created and put in production. Took a while to get that done, but this gives us the ability to see the heights, the tops of features on the ground, right? And so we call this a digital service model, a DSM, so you can see clearly the buildings and the trees, but we also have the underlying dim, right? So we can use those 2 layers to calculate height, right? For buildings and trees across the state. Now this is phase 2 compared to phase 1. Phase 1 on the left, phase 2 on the right. You can see the resolution, 5-foot to 2-foot pixel. There is different resolution, but here the temporal resolution is important to consider as well. We have 2 distinct time periods where we can measure change in height. It's the first time we've been able to do that statewide. And so I look forward to the analyses that come out of this. Finally, we have a beta testing. We're beta testing an elevation explorer. It's a server-side calculation of the highest and lowest location, elevation, and height in any given area of interest you show on your phone. This is server side, so you can be able to run it on a mobile device pretty easily. Okay, finally, Lucas will present the oriented imagery layer and the oblique viewer that's enabled here. What Kent brought up was important. So our current viewers, you know, you can access the imagery and compare it to a base map. Well, in the new capabilities in 3.6 and in AGOL, you bring your own data. You bring your own lines, you bring your parcels, polygons, points, whatever, and look at your own data over oblique imagery, right? So we have that opportunity, and Lucas will do a deeper walkthrough on that. And so what that, allow us to do is give a, different workflows you can incorporate your data using our oblique imagery. Okay, a few final thoughts before let Meg take the next presentation. If you're coming late, if you're coming to Zoom late, or maybe just walking into the room, you might have heard that Kentucky from Above recently appropriated $12 million for statewide, or 2/3 of our LiDAR and or complete phase 3 LiDAR and start phase 4 imagery. And so, of course, it's a big deal. We leverage those funds, and Kent pointed the map out, all subject to USGS funding. But that's currently the plan. Plans change, of course, but that's the plan. And hopefully we'll complete phase 3 elevation. That will be a huge accomplishment, right? To have 3 phases of elevation over this time frame. And then start phase 4, as Kent said, east to west. And that's the one set of the plan. But we have another set as well. What does it take to pull this off, right? And so we're looking at the maps and say, oh, it's doable, right? And when it gets done, it'll be accessible and easy to use. But like I started in the beginning, what is really the plan is we need to have, of course, people. And that's people in leadership seeing value in this product and supporting it, and supporting us doing this, and continue to support it. So we can have this, this session check, right? So good. Next, we need to have people in data governance and expertise, lending their expertise to these standards that we have. It's getting complex. LiDAR is quite complex. And the mechanism for that is the Geographic Information Advisory Council and its technical subcommittees. And without the dedication of these volunteers, we wouldn't really have a foundation, right? We recently updated our LiDAR spec for USGS in phase 3, and give a shout out to Demetrio for helping with that. And then we need people to collect and do the QA, QC of the data, right? We need the people to make the observations, to make the data usable, to make sure it's correct. And then we need people to ensure that it's discoverable. We steward it. We make it available to the public. We build the derivative products, and that's DGI, and that's the IT support teams at COT, right? All the server support that we need to accomplish this. And finally, it's you, right? It's the GIS professionals, the policymakers, citizens who create knowledge, form collaborations, and make informed decisions with this data. That's where the value actually lands in this whole enterprise. And if any one of these groups don't show up, right, it's all for naught, right? We need all these groups to show up. But I know we will. I know we will, because that's the passion we share for mapping and bettering the Commonwealth. Thank you. And by the way, that is a link to all of the maps and services that I presented.
Good job. Good job, Boyd. Hey, Meg. All right. Let's see if we can actually successfully change presentations. There you are. Well, that one easy. So hopefully you can just hit the space bar and we'll see how that goes. Oh,
Good morning, everybody. I'm Meg Henderson, Director of GIS for the Kentucky State Board of Elections. Since I'm talking to a GIS crowd, I'll skip the what is a topology portion and go straight to the part that causes known headaches. The project I've been working on is called 120:1, creating a statewide Kentucky precinct data set. The name is literal. Kentucky has 120 counties, each with their own creative ways of maintaining their data. Our goal is to turn all of that into one clean, topologically valid statewide layer. As Kent mentioned earlier, such a data set did not exist before this project. And just to frame this correctly, yes, this is a GIS problem, but it is also a governance problem. And honestly, it's a trust problem too, because when geography isn't consistent, nothing built on top of it is either. It changed, yay. All righty. Now, let me ground the stakes first. Election administration has a hard technical requirement that sounds deceptively simple. Every address in the state must resolve to exactly one precinct, not approximately one, full stop. That sounds obvious, but think about what this really means. This is every voter assignment, every ballot style, every reporting unit. All of it depends on the precinct boundaries behaving exactly how we expect them to. Now, here's the issue. You cannot guarantee that with 120 disconnected data sets that were never designed to interoperate. County level maintenance works perfectly well locally, but what works at a county scale falls apart when you try to aggregate it statewide. So the goal here is not just aggregation, it's authoritative standardization at scale in an effort to geo-enable elections. When I say geo-enabling elections, I mean three things that will sound familiar: spatial accuracy, topological validity, and attribute consistency. The challenge here isn't the concepts, it's enforcing all three simultaneously across 120 independently maintained data sets. We're talking about turning election geography into something that is reliable, operational, and interoperable. I also want to be clear that this is a data infrastructure project, not a cartography project. The primary output here is not a web map. It is an operational data set that future voter registration systems, redistricting tools, and public-facing applications can actually use. Because there's a meaningful difference between data that visualizes correctly and data that behaves correctly in analysis. If it looks good but breaks in a spatial join, it's useless. In elections, behavior beats visualization every time. Now here's what we're working with. 120 counties, and like I said, I'll put it charitably, each one developed their own approach. CRS-wise, it was a lineup of the usual suspects or the complete lack thereof. Schema-wise, precinct identifiers alone had a seemingly infinite count of different field names across the counties. Geometry ranging from pristine to, we'll call that approximate. None of this is a county level failure. Their data served its local purpose given their local companion data sets used. But collectively, it didn't compose. And if it doesn't compose, you don't have a system. So let's talk about the real issue. Kentucky had no statewide precinct fabric, not a flawed one, not an incomplete one, none. And the consequences of that absence ripple outward in ways that are easy to underestimate until you're the one trying to do something useful with the data. Without a statewide fabric, cross-county spatial analysis isn't difficult, it's effectively prohibited. You can't run a reliable spatial join across a boundary that doesn't consistently agree with itself. You can't do voter assignments with confidence when the logic that works in one county silently breaks in the county next door. You can't integrate with census geography, legislative districts, or any other authoritative layer when your foundation shifts depending on which of the 120 data sets you're looking at. And perhaps most importantly, you can't project confidence, not to the public, not to partner agencies, not to anyone who needs to trust that the geography underlying their precinct assignment is sound. Lack of confidence in planning and transparency isn't a soft concern. In election administration, it's a fundamental problem. So instead of continuing to patch symptoms county by county, chasing individual errors while the underlying incompatibility remained, we stepped back. We made a deliberate decision. We are building the fabric from the ground up. Phase one was about one thing, something critical: boundary intent validation. We needed to confirm that our geometry matched what the county clerks, each county board of elections, and their fiscal courts understood their precincts to be. To do that, we generated a full precinct map series, 3 foot by 4 foot in size when printed, for all 120 counties. The series included a countywide overview with insets for dense or incorporated areas, and 1 map per precinct. We distributed these to every county clerk asking for confirmation, are these your precincts? And they did. They gave us something incredibly valuable: local authority validation. We knew that the geometry reflected the intent of the officials legally responsible for those boundaries. But this process took approximately 2 years, reaching completion in January of 2026. Excuse me. But, and this is the key pivot, that validation was visual. It was static, not topological, not structural. So we knew what was intended, but we didn't yet know whether it would hold up in a system. Phase 2 is where intent meets reality. And in reality, as it turns out, had opinions. The foundation of this phase was ingesting all 120 county precinct shape files submitted during 2023 reapportionment cycle. But precincts don't freeze after reapportionment, they change. And in Kentucky, those changes flow through a formal legal process called a precinct establishment order, a PEO. A PEO is the instrument a county clerk uses to formally create, split, merge, or otherwise modify a precinct. And it doesn't take effect until it's been approved by both the respective county board of elections and their fiscal court. So by the time SBE receives one, it carries real legal weight, which is a polite way of saying we can't just quietly ignore it and hope it goes away. That matters for the data set in 2 ways. First, every approved PEO is a potential boundary change that has to be reflected in the statewide layer. And second, and this is the less obvious one, PEOs drive a versioning requirement. We can't simply overwrite geometry when a boundary moves. We have to preserve what existed before, when it changed, and under what authority, which is why we maintained original county geometry throughout rather than replacing it as we standardize. Because in elections, if you can't trace a boundary decision back to its legal origin, you can't defend it. Now, once everything came together in one place, we got a clear picture of the data variability, and it was messy. Predictably messy, but still impressive. Coordinate systems alone covered the full tour: NAD 83, NAD 27, WGS 84, multiple state plane zones, and of course a few with no projection at all, just vibes and a polygon. Schema was just as creative. Precinct IDs had dozens of different field names across counties, which makes a statewide join exactly as painful as you're imagining. Then geometry, gaps, overlaps, coverage that didn't always make it to the county boundary, sometimes stopping at the water's edge, sometimes at federal land, sometimes just stopping. So what we had was data that worked locally, but didn't hold together statewide. And this is the key takeaway. Validation does not equal standardization. These counties weren't wrong, but aggregation exposed every assumption that had never needed to align before. And that's exactly what phase 2 is built to fix. We broke the remediation into 4 steps. Step 1, projection. Everything into NAD 83, State Plane, Kentucky, single zone, US feet. Routine, yes. Optional, not even a little. Without it, no alignment, no topology, no scalability. This is what turns 120 data sets into one system, giving us a consistent linear unit for topology operations, alignment with the other authoritative Kentucky state data sets, and no zone boundary headaches. Next up was schema standardization. That stage doesn't get much attention, but this is where data sets quietly fall apart. And here's the thing. Schema problems don't show up on a map. Bad geometry, you see it immediately. Schema issues, they fail later. In the join that returns nothing, in the query that drops half your records, the report that looks right and is completely wrong. They are the carbon monoxide of GIS problems. So we standardize precinct IDs, one naming convention statewide, field names and values, consistent, no interpretation required. All of this enforced through domains, FIPS codes, attribute rules, and field mapping. The goal is simple. Any field means the same thing no matter which county it came from, because without that, nothing downstream works without per county cleanup. And right now, working with this data means understanding 120 schemas. After this, it's one, and all of that matters for redistricting, for reporting, for public data use. Now, topological integrity. We're balancing legal descriptions as approved by their authorities against spatial behavior. Let me see. So, and those don't always align perfectly. When we find violations, we resolve them against the legal descriptions from phase 1. We are applying legal intent, not geometric heuristics. If there's a gap between two precincts, the legal description tells us which polygon should claim it. We're not guessing geometry. We are enforcing what was legally defined in a way that actually functions. Now the hard part, topology. 3 rules, they're simple to state and humbling to enforce at scale. No gaps, no overlaps, and full county coverage. Every square foot of every county is assigned a precinct, exactly 1. Not approximately 1, not probably 1, just 1. And here's where the real tension lives. We are not enforcing geometry. We are simultaneously honoring legal descriptions and boundary definitions from phase 1. Those legal descriptions are the ground truth. The spatial data is supposed to reflect them. And when the two disagree, which they do more often than you'd hope, we don't get to flip a coin. When we find a gap between 2 precincts, the legal description tells us which polygon claims it. When we find an overlap, the legal description tells us who's right. We are not making geometric judgment calls. We are not smoothing things over with a snapping tolerance and calling it done. We are applying legal intent in spatial form and documenting every decision we make along the way. In practice, that means stretching or clipping precinct boundaries to meet the authoritative county line, or correcting gaps and overlaps while preserving the boundary intent. The governing principle here is this. It's straightforward. Geometry serves the law. The law does not bend to accommodate a sloppy polygon. Because if we let geometry win, we're not building an authoritative data set, we're just building a cleaner mess. Then comes county boundary alignment, the stage where we make everything actually agree on where Kentucky is. Every precinct edge that touches a county boundary gets snapped or trimmed to the Kentucky County Polygons layer on Kentucky GeoNet. Not a county boundary, not our best guess at a county boundary, the county boundary, the one that's been vetted and documented. And that eliminates a category of problem that is small in size and enormous in consequence, slivers. Those sub-meter gaps between a precinct edge and a county line that look fine at a 1 to 50,000 feet scale and become a topological crisis the moment someone tries to do a spatial join. Gone. We don't negotiate with slivers. We don't grandfather them in. We don't document them as known issues and move on. They're gone. Same goes for boundary drift. The slow and innocent accumulation of small misalignments that nobody noticed because they were each individually reasonable. And close enough, a phrase that has no place in this data set, this workflow, or frankly, this room. Now full coverage means full coverage, not most coverage, not where it's convenient. If it's within the state of Kentucky, it is assigned a Kentucky precinct. Water bodies, federal lands, private holdings, that uninhabited ridge in eastern Kentucky that no one has set foot on since 1987, all of it. Because in elections, there's no such thing as a geography that doesn't count. Now, as we all know, QA is iterative, always. There's no GIS project where the first pass is the last pass, and this is definitely not the exception. The workflow is simple. Validate, correct, revalidate, and usually validate again, because fixing one thing tends to introduce a question next door. And anyone who's fixed topology error and discovered 3 more will feel very seen here. This process is the same for every county. CRS check, schema validation, topology, boundary alignment, coverage confirmation. Same order, no shortcuts. Because this isn't a one-time build. PEOs keep coming in, boundaries keep changing, and every update has to meet the same standard or the data set starts to drift. The workflow is intentionally hybrid. Automation catches patterns fast, it's consistent and scalable. Humans handle edge cases where things get ambiguous and decisions have to be defensible. And legal descriptions guide both. Which brings me to something worth stating clearly. The county clerk is the ultimate authority on their precincts, full stop. SPE's role is to enforce structure, consistent projection, valid topology, complete coverage. We are not in the business of deciding where a precinct boundary should be. That's not our call to make, and we are very deliberate about not making it. Now, this only works because it's collaborative, genuinely, structurally, by design collaborative. This is a project we are doing with counties, not to them, not for them. That distinction matters more than it might sound. But phase 1 gave us boundary intent validation, clerks confirming that the geometry reflected what they understood their precincts to be. Phase 2 depends on continuing that relationship, legal descriptions guiding every topology decision, ongoing feedback loops when something doesn't resolve cleanly, and iteration rather than unilateral correction. When a county comes back with gross or widespread topology errors, it goes back to the county. We flag it, we document it, we explain it, and then we wait for the people with the legal authority to resolve it. We do not redraw boundaries we have no business redrawing. And for counties without in-house GIS staff, which is a real and common situation across the state, we coordinate with the area development districts. The ads already have GIS capacity, they have relationships with their counties, and we are not building a parallel support structure from scratch. We are working within infrastructure that already exists. Right now, we are actively moving from validated but fragmented to operational and standardized. That transition is happening county by county, and it's the most tangible measure of progress on this project. Once a county clears topology, no gaps, no overlaps, full coverage, and boundaries aligned, it doesn't just get filed away as a clean reference layer. It becomes operational. It gets integrated into a centralized DGI application available to each county clerk, and their data is loaded for voter lookup and precinct assignment. And that word centralized is doing a lot of the work there. Prior to this effort, each county clerk had been looking at their own data in isolation with no guarantee that what they were seeing aligns with their neighbors. This application changes that. For the first time, these clerks have access to one data set, the same authoritative statewide layer, rather than 120 parallel versions of a truth that may or may not align. And that's not a small shift, that's the whole point. And once statewide completion is reached, the application will become public-facing, available to anyone who needs to know where their precinct is or how their address maps to the broader electoral geography of the state. From fragmented reference data to a live, public, authoritative tool, that's where this is going. And here you can see our progress across the state. Now, mind you, this phase kicked off in January of this year, so we've already made some really good progress. Regular green is counties completed and live on COT's app, 81. Bright green, counties in progress, 1, starting Monday. Blue is counties pending delivery to COT for integration, there's 9. Red, they are deferred pending corrective work by the county, 5. And yellow, counties remaining, 24. Orange would indicate counties delivered to COT but pending integration into their app, and there are none at the moment. And this calls for a shout out here to Kevin Hogue of DGI for turning SBE deliverables around so quickly once we get them to him. Key point, this project is not theoretical, it's happening. This is where it pays off. A standardized, topologically valid data set enables us to run statewide analysis, trust boundary behavior, and integrate cleanly. And most importantly, no ambiguity, no gaps, no overlaps, no depends on where you stand. It's creating a clean integration surface for census tiger geometry, administrative layers, future data sets without per county pre-processing, which has real value for redistricting support and federal reporting. And this is the shift from reference data to operational infrastructure. Now, this project's benefits flow in 3 directions. Counties get cleaner, standardized data aligned to confirmed boundaries and reduced reconciliation overhead. The state gets a cohesive statewide fabric that can actually support scalable analysis and data integration. External stakeholders, researchers, civic organizations, the media get a usable data set with minimal pre-processing required. The real value and cross-cutting benefit is the combination. Local validation plus technical standardization. You need both. Without it, it falls apart. Local knowledge without standardization gives you 120 locally correct data sets. Standardization without local validation gives you a technically clean layer that may not reflect legal intent. Combine them and you get something authoritative. Next up, expansion. Phase 3 includes building a more robust experience builder application and making it available to the general public. Beyond that, we'll add polling locations and additional ballot geographies like magisterial districts, school board zones, school districts, and commissioner districts. The precinct layer becomes the foundation everything else builds on, instead of everyone maintaining slightly different versions of reality. This becomes a complete election geography framework. Now for the hard truth. Building the fabric is one challenge. Keeping it accurate over time is a different one, and in some ways, the harder of the two. PEOs come in, precincts change, boundaries shift, everything must be revalidated. So we need governance, coordination, and update workflows. Governance is not optional, defining ownership, update authority, validation requirements, and coordination protocols across SBE, county officials, the legislature, and other agencies that depend on this data. A data set without a maintenance model is a snapshot. With governance, it's infrastructure, because without that, the data set will drift. So sustainability becomes the priority. The goal is simple to say. Every address resolves to one precinct. Every time, no guessing, no weird edge cases, especially at county lines. Now, that sounds simple, but it's not. Because if you've worked with boundary data for more than about 5 minutes, you know that the problems don't show up in the middle of a polygon. They show up on edges, at corners, where boundaries almost agree. And that's where things get creative. And creative is not what you want in your elections. So what we're doing is taking all of that ambiguity and removing it. Building a system where the answer is the same every time, no matter who's asking or where they're asking from. Even if you're sitting right on a boundary line, wondering which side you're on. So this is a journey from intent to data that actually behaves to a real statewide system. Not 120 pieces that mostly line up, but something that fits together without duct tape. And that's what gets us to the bigger picture, a stronger, more reliable election infrastructure. One that people can trust because it's consistent and it holds up under pressure. Now, we're not done yet. There has been and will continue to be a lot of topology QA, a lot of back and forth with clerks. Some of them do not like me. And PEO updates to keep up with. This is not a set it and forget it situation, but here's the part I feel really good about. We're building the foundation the right way. And once that foundation is solid, everything else gets easier, cleaner, and more reliable. And maybe, just maybe, I'll get a few less emails from county clerks asking, can you geocode all of my voters to confirm they're in the right precincts? Thanks, guys. I appreciate your time today, and I'm happy to take questions, especially if you want to dig into the technical workflows, decisions, or the lessons learned. Okay,
But,
they can find me. They can come find me at lunch.
yeah, that was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Standards, what you're doing is awesome. So let's make sure that you engage Meg at lunch or during break. Because again, this is the kind of work we need done on every data set. So thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to try to switch again. Roll the dice. Yeah. It's, if it's cooperative, there you go. So you should be able to, if we minimize that, then hopefully you can see everything. Okay. No, you should be good. The only thing you'll have to check on is, let me see.
Speed.
Nope, that's not working. Let me move it over here. Yep, okay.
Okay, cool.
So all you need to do is, if the mouse is over there, you just click the mouse, or spacebar will work as well.
Great, thanks. Good morning, everyone. As was said, my name is Rebecca Ramsey, and I'm here to talk to you about a GIS baseline and the resulting data management site that I provided to support Kentucky Division of Forestry, also known as KDF. In the pink are tracks from tornadoes in Kentucky on December 10th of 2021. That Friday evening, the National Weather Service found a violent EF4 tornado beginning in far northwest Tennessee, and it moved across West Kentucky, resulting in significant destruction across 166 miles. The minutes indicated in teal represent approximately how many minutes it took for that EF4 to actually traverse the entire county. And the time in white indicates the time the EF4 reached that city. That same night, an EF3 tornado started in Tennessee and traveled 123 miles into Kentucky's Christian and Todd counties, running almost parallel to the EF4. FEMA authorized an emergency declaration for 17 of Kentucky's counties during this time. In blue are the tracks for tornadoes that touched down across Kentucky 1 month later. Let's take a closer look at the EF4 that was in Graves County with a community called Mayfield. The radar 3D volume scans of the supercell you see on the left show debris that was present over 30,000 feet in the air when it struck Mayfield. The EF4 went across the city of Mayfield in just 3 minutes. And you can see the storm front in the radar video on the right with the red polygons that indicate the path moving across the counties. And you can see the speed at which it moved. Pictured here is an aerial view of Mayfield the day after the EF4 tornado. These tornadoes left devastation across counties in both town and rural landscapes alike. This photo taken in Taylor County shows an entire wooded area where the tornado left trees laid flat and their root balls exposed. For scale, at the very top are white utility trucks with their arms extended, addressing the power lines. So that gives you an idea of the size of these trees. The communities impacted are still in recovery today, over 5 years later. As the communities shift from immediate recovery to long-term rebuilding, the role at the Division of Forestry is to support the residents, the city staff, and the landowners, like those in the community of Dawson Springs shown here, to help them plan the future of their trees that were damaged. A unique grant-funded tornado relief strike team was created within the Division of Forestry to provide targeted assistance to those impacted by these tornadoes. This team spans 4 KDF programs, so that includes forest health, forest stewardship, urban and community forestry, and wildfire risk assessment, specifically in the tornado forestry recovery efforts. With statewide swath of tornadoes, our team faced the challenge of qualifying where forestry assistance would be needed beyond the general lens of a county impacted landscape. The first step was to define our area of interest. And I started with the NOAA-defined tornado tracks, as shown at the top left of the slide. And for a zoomed-in view, we're going to return to Mayfield. I added a 1 mile buffer in pink, and I picked 1 mile because it was arbitrary and I needed to start somewhere. So it was a good place to start, nice and round number. From there, I added NOAA's survey image damage points. So those are the inverted triangles that you see and the damage swath polygons that are shown in orange and turquoise to confirm we were capturing actual damage that was on the ground inside that 1 mile buffer. Next, I added the on-the-ground survey damage points from Kentucky in green and the Civil Air Patrol photos in maroon. And that pointed toward the confirmed damage. So we wanted those maroon points actually at the edge of the buffer that we used. So using these data sets, I was able to safely assume that 1 mile buffer would contain the bulk of the damage and narrow down our focus area. Kentucky, as we've talked about today, is very fortunate for the variety of geospatial data that you can see here laid over the top of Mayfield. Most of this data is publicly available through Kentucky GeoNet and our data clearinghouse that we have. Shown here are the data layers of interest to our KDF programs. So that includes next-gen 911 address points, populated places, cities, corporate boundaries, and local parks. Our analysis did also include our past internal stewardship boundaries, but those are not seen here. So from there, I clipped the data layers by the 1 mile buffer, reducing that data down to areas with potential tornado impact.
This clip resulted in 240 past forest stewardship boundaries, which could potentially put us in contact with landowners and organizations we've worked with previously on forest management or stewardship plans. These plans typically have about a 10-year life cycle and are routinely updated at the landowner's request. In general, the tornado path buffers included 100 populated places, 24 corporate boundaries, 47 local parks, and for address points of structures, there were over 76,000. That's a lot of people to try and inform about KDF services if they've never heard of them before. So I knew we could actually refine this number more because not every person in that 76,000 would have actually experienced damaged woodlands. Now, as I do work with forestry, I can't let you leave without learning just a little bit about trees. Imagine two trees, one thriving and one struggling. You can usually tell which is healthier by looking at their color. Greener leaves typically mean the plant is doing a better job of using that sunlight to grow. Scientists can actually measure this difference using something called NDVI, or Normalized Difference Vegetation Index. It's a way to use satellite data to tell how green or healthy vegetation is across large areas. Satellites can measure how much that sunlight plants reflect from Earth's surface, especially that red light, so which our eyes can see, and the near infrared, which our eyes can't see with the naked eye. Healthy trees reflect a lot of that near infrared light and absorb a lot of the red light. And so that NDVI turns into a difference in a number. The larger the number, the healthier the tree or the vegetation. So when we look at NDVI before and after the tornado, we can see where vegetation health dropped or the canopy density decreased in the tornado path. So I used a web application seen on the screen called HiForm. It's a high-resolution forest mapping tool that's powered by Google Earth Engine, and you can analyze changes using satellite data. I chose Sentinel-2 surface reflectance data, and the app compares the highest NDVI values from one summer to the next. And this is showing where that forest canopy health declined after the tornadoes and reporting it back in pixels. Of note, the data is post-processed, so it does correct for atmospheric within the application. In order to continue working with it more for our analysis, I downloaded the resulting HiForm raster file to a linked Google account. As seen in this example, when we zoom into Kentucky's land between the lakes, there's a distinct path of negative NDVI change indicated by those yellow and red pixels. I downloaded the raster file from the Google account, opened it in an Arc Pro project, and then we could look at our 10-meter pixels. These pixels lined up precisely with our tornado path. So the next step was to convert the raster data to polygons. I queried the polygon data in Pro to highlight the areas that actually showed that NDVI change, the negative change. So the yellows, the oranges, the reds, and the purples, which indicated that loss in forest canopy. Please note the displayed values were NDVI changes scaled by a factor of 100. So those values shown as whole numbers corresponded to decimal differences between the before and after analysis. The more negative the value, the greater the canopy loss. So I grouped those areas into slight, moderate, and high decrease categories. Then I added a 200-foot buffer around each area to capture nearby data and to account for those 10-meter resolution. This buffer would help specifically aid in capturing point data, as 911 address may not have precisely fallen within that 10-meter pixel. These new polygon layers were used to clip the data further. Now I've narrowed the data down to much fewer features than a single 1-mile buffer would. Recall those 911 addresses were over 76,000. Now we're at almost 14,000. So I've categorized those forest loss within that change as well. So that's related to those features, slight, moderate, high. And now we've moved on to the greatest lift of all, as Meg talked about, data quality checks. So after all, tornadoes aren't the only thing that cause forest decline. We performed visual confirmation of potential impacted areas using aerial imagery. Myself and one lucky summer intern went through the data methodically, grid by grid, marking each location as either false positive, ground confirmation needed, or confirmed tornado damage. This manual review helped ensure we were reflecting in our map what actually happened on the ground. And this process could likely be automated now using newer AI modeling and training tools, but at the time of the analysis, I hadn't yet trained a model and many of the models available weren't yet widely accessible without the appropriate licensing. Here is an example. On the map, you see the tornado path buffer area, which is like the pink polygon, and then we have the county local area or the city locality within that turquoise. We add the specific features that we're interested in, like parks, and you're going to see where we have that impacted polygons, the yellows and oranges. So you overlay an imaginary grid and you move through that area in a methodical way, reviewing each section from top to bottom and then side to side. And then you can focus on the NDVI change areas, zooming into each circle of interest, again, those yellows and oranges. By toggling between 2020 and 2022 high resolution imagery, we could visually confirm where tree canopy loss had occurred and likely was tornado related. So this is another example. This time we're really zoomed in on a water treatment plant in Mayfield. We can see all 3 polygon category layers for slight and yellow, moderate and red, and then high and purple. When we look at the 2020 2-foot imagery that is thankfully available through Kentucky from Above, as it is higher resolution than that Sentinel imagery we were using, it's super useful for this analysis, especially when we compare against a 2-foot imagery from 2022. When zooming in on the decreased forest canopy areas, tornado damage is clearly visible. The trees were uprooted, snapped in half, or lying flat across the ground. These patterns aligned with the tornado's path to help confirm canopy loss seen in NDVI data was indeed tornado related. Another Mayfield example, but this time in a neighborhood. In 2020, we have a clear view of trees and houses, but in 2022, we have missing trees, missing houses, and blue tarps on roofs. These are neighborhood indicators for confirmed tornado damage. So this one is a new example. This is from Horse Cave, Kentucky, and it's also within the path of the tornado. It also indicated a decrease in forest canopy. In 2020, it has that forested area there on the bottom right, but in 2022, it has a new pond installed, an expanded parking lot, and construction area. So we categorize this as a false positive, as we couldn't clearly confirm if it had tornado damage, and then they did construction afterwards. One last example of false positives considered is based on shadows, time of day, and angle of the imagery. Now, these are not the precise images used for the NDVI analysis, but it does get the point across. On the far left, you can see that it indicates the forest decrease within those polygons. And yet, across the images, we don't see a change beyond shadows. Recall the NDVI was based on the max value of the score across 2 months. And I selected the June and July between the summers, before and after the tornado. So the time of day is another type of false positive that you'd have to consider, but it is identified using this QA/QC. Once the manual QA/QC was completed, we refined our data set to include only the features that were within 200 feet of canopy loss. So we started with 47 parks, categorized and clipped by forest canopy decrease, which took us to 26 parks. And then with visual confirmation, we only needed to focus on 4 parks that had negative impact to the forest canopy. With these numbers, our team can go reach out to the specific parks regarding the community tree planting and canopy assessments to help people understand what was lost and plan smartly for what to consider replanting in their community. Such knowledge sharing and partnerships ensure new trees are placed where they'll thrive in the community, restore their shade and beauty, and build a healthier, more resilient landscape for the future. We also took stewardship boundaries from 240 to 35 that are now categorized again by impact. We will have a contact number and former forestry plans for each of these 35 entities if the property has not changed hands. This will help fast track reconnecting and providing a head start on recovery planning. These forest stewardship plans help landowners and communities make informed decisions about what trees to remove, what could recover, and how to restore the land safely and sustainably. For corporate boundaries, we went from 24 to 9. With this refined data, the team will have a better idea about who manages or governs the impacted property, which is critical for coordinating forestry planning efforts, securing the right permissions, and aligning with local priorities. Populated places went from 100 down to 7. Identifying these helps prioritize forestry recovery efforts where they most directly affect the communities that were impacted. And 911 addresses went from over 76,000 down to a little over 1,800 if we focus only on those moderate to high impact addresses. With this information, we can plan how we reached out to a population we may not have ever connected with previously. With the analysis complete and defined major areas and landowners impacted, we still need to know which landowner or community is interested in support. You don't want to thrust it upon someone. from the Tornado Relief Strike Team. So now we transition to the workflow for the team, because the team is essentially a miniature version of KDF representing all 4 major programs. KDF field staff will assist the strike team as needed, but the team leads all tornado recovery coordination. Through the contacts the team made with local organizations within the communities, through extension offices, farmers markets, local fairs, churches, we direct the public to our public Survey 123 form that they can fill out and express that they have interest in the team coming on site. At the office, the team performs an initial review of the applications to confirm they are indeed within the impact area that is supported by the grant. At any point during the workflow, if a site is not within a tornado path or the severity of the impact is greater than the time that the grant-funded team is available to provide support, then the project flows to the left to the regular program processes within Madisonville branch, who services the majority of these counties impacted. When the team is on site, they complete a field assessment survey 123, and that contains questions and priorities based on each individual program coordinator's priorities. And that also is based on what the landowner's main goal is, with some overlap existing between the programs. The surveys are vital in helping applicants connect with the right resources at the right time through geospatially informed efficient system. And the data from the Survey 123s are both accessible to the team through an internal AGOL web experience build. The internal web experience build is accessed by 2 main groups. We have a view-only group and then an editors group. And as I shy away from live presentation demos, and as it is actually still an internal site, we will work with the screenshots of the site instead. Here we have the top half of the homepage of the website. This was not built as a hub through AGOL, but I use the term hub as it's a lot less words than to say the web experience build. You can just say, go to the data hub. This top first yellow bar section shows buttons that the team can use to navigate to the results of the public interest survey or go directly to the survey itself. They can also access the results of their on-site visit survey or go to that survey themselves. The next yellow bar section that's down, the second one that kind of has those blank icons, that is the placeholder for the dashboards that I'm going to be creating and relate those dashboards to only the individual program coordinator's data. I don't want them to have to look through all the data and figure out what it is they precisely want. I just want to display it for each of them per their needs on what they actually want to see. And no matter where they are on the website, they can get back to this homepage using that data hub button up at the top right. Here's the bottom half of the site. The yellow bar section here contains buttons to take them to nearby site visit reporter and the urban and community forestry proposed planting tool. At the very bottom are helpful links they might reference, like Kentucky Mesonet and Kentucky From Above. Here are screenshots of the very quick public survey for the landowner or community to request the team to come on site. The survey starts with the applicant type they are. Are they an individual, an organization, or a community? Because we want to have that quick contact information for one person and how many people that person is representing. Then we ask if they're applying in partnership with a neighbor or a community or another organization. This way we can combine folks in, say, a neighborhood and plan in a visit appropriately to accommodate multiple people instead of having to do one spot, go across to another county, come back to the exact same spot. So looking for efficiency. From there, they draw the impacted forest land of the proposed work. And this map includes the path and the 1 mile buffer of the tornado, sort of a visual cue to the applicant of where the team can work. However, it still does have verbiage at the top explaining that applicants impacted by a tornado after January 22 may also be considered, because we don't want to turn away contact information for anyone if we wanted to leave a window to still reach out to those impacted by, say, a tornado that comes later. From there, it's estimated forested acres and the program categories the landowner is specifically interested in, because this, again, it's about what their needs and desires are. We use these categories that are also listed. Instead of giving the KDF titles of the programs, we use language like, are you interested in healthy forest, healthy trees, managing your forest, trees in your community, or wildfire safety practices? Because they may not know forest health, stewardship, urban community forestry, wildfire. They may not know what those categories cover. The results of the public interest survey are then accessible from the dashboard button on that Data Hub homepage. At the snapshot, of course, I grabbed this site and then minimized all of our tables, keep the privacy. But we had 35 individuals and one community organization and 43 sites and approximately 1,300 acres at the time that I grabbed this snapshot. As you can see on the map, we have a few applicants that are currently outside the grant supported area at this time. So what we can do is still direct them towards our KDF program coordinators with the major branch and move them through the workflow of their program based on the applicants expressed interest. And over on the right, we have the date of the submission of the survey. So the team can determine which of their public events they attended or outreach attempts that they made were successful in relation to their work calendar. So that covers the first two buttons in the first yellow bar section. Now we're going to explore the two buttons in that same section over to the right. And that is the survey that uses logic to hide or make visible questions based on the previous responses or answers. And all of these are based on the questions important to each individual program coordinator that I had to sit with and ask, what do you want to know that'll help you decide how the foresters can work with this area? And instead of a live demo, we're going to see if this video works. Hopefully it will. Yes. Okay. So it starts with, are you an individual landowner or an org community? So this is the form that the forester uses when they're on site. And then they're going to draw that boundary of the land area that is proposed for that project. And as it does that, it's going to calculate the acres, what county it's in. They're going to give a brief project description as to what the goals are and pick one primary goal so that we have a general focus of where we're going with this. And then the next thing is going to be potential project challenges, because some things could be so significant of a challenge, it might take more time and need to transition back to the regular branch programming. Things like underground utilities in the area could be an issue. And then we have, are there any special sites or historical sites? So these again are another concern you're going to want to be interested in whenever you're deciding what type of plan you're making for this area. And then, was there a previous land type that we're trying to get back to? Or is this a previous land type so that we know where we're starting, so we know what we transition to? From there, it's going to become those program specific questions. So you have invasive plants, if they're present, and then it's going to ask, how much is there? And we gave that more of a qualitative with a quantity number. So light would be 25 to 100 plants are invasive. Moderate would be 100 to 500, or severe more than 1,000, because you have to give context for what this impact is for those invasives. Then you give the amount of acreage that contains that invasive plant and what type of removal management strategy the landowner is comfortable with, because you need to know what they're willing to have or not have. And then we go to the infested level. So this is looking at some of your insects. Are we having an infestation? And it goes right back to that same light, moderate, or severe. Are they comfortable with chemical treatment or not? Because you want to plan, again, for what that landowner is wanting. And then additional spots at the bottom for the forest health comments, so they can add if there's certain tools or chemicals they might need for this plan. You move into stewardship. Again, logic questions. Has it had a management plan or a stewardship plan before? Are you interested in one? What type of practice are you wanting for these types of plans? Is there regeneration occurring within the stand? So are there trees already coming back? And then a spot for additional stewardship comments. Beneath that is going to be urban and community forestry. And theirs is more about what that plantable space is. Is it a park? Is it a community? Is it your neighborhood? And then additional spots for, would we need pruning? Would an arborist referral be needed? Is a sick tree assessment needed? And then for wildfire fuel reduction, do they currently have a community wildfire protection plan? If not, are they interested in one? Would their neighborhood like one? Because with all these trees down, that's a lot of fuels just sitting there. So all this information comes back from the survey and would populate the dashboard for the on-the-ground work. Obviously, for privacy, again, we have the tables cropped, but on the bottom of the screen, they would see their tables and results in tabular form that they can modify or view as needed. On the top left are summary count cards, each of which are color-coded by their program. So forest health in green, stewardship in light tan, urban in blue, and fire in red. If you toggle the arrows left or right, you will see the sum counts of that contact information. On the top right, you have the sum counts of County, the number of counties that were visited on site, the percent of the sites that were visited, primary goal type. Are they primarily stewardship? Are they primary forest health? So what are people's goals? And the number of sites that they have visited per month. Now, as I said before, I'm still in the works of creating the dashboards for each program coordinator's specific data, but it's very simple. All the forest health, all the green goes to forest health, and so on and so forth for each respective program. And finally, let's take a look at our last yellow bar section. So this is our reports and our editors. And so first up, we're going to look at that report. On the left are all the domains that could be found within that attribute table. And in the middle is a map, and the team can create a report to populate the summary information based on whichever single site or community that they select via either a point or a freehand drawn polygon. And they can export that report into whatever format is necessary for their use. So this is obviously that nearby or near me widget in the web experience builder. So this works really well for reporting to a community or reporting to the federal grant reporting in charge of the grant funded team. Where have they been? How much have they done? How many acres? What communities are impacted the most? And this is an example of the PDF report where this polygon was drawn over a community north of Beaver Dam, and it demonstrated 4 sites visited and the respective data that was collected from the on-site visit survey. And finally, we'll visit that urban community forest proposed planting portion of the site, which is the button on the far right. Now, this map contains the data layer that the team has access to in fields, or field maps. So for indicating proposed sites for planting. As we know, this can be used in coordination for the immediate plans for planting and resulting spatial data and reports that can be handed to the landowner or the community, or as is the case for majorly impacted community instances, like Mayfield, where many other construction projects have to occur first, and the team is time limited and based on where they can be and for how long. But they can still draft up a plan using this tool and then hand over that planting and resulting spatial data to the community that reports what they can plant and where they can plant it to support their goals when they're ready to plant. So using this outlined workflow and data management tools, KDF will listen, learn, and help identify which forestry activities best support the local goals on the ground, whether that's replanting community trees, updating stewardship management plans, or addressing forest health and wildfire risks. We know that damaged trees and disturbed ground invites pests, invasive species, and fire hazards. But with early attention and thoughtful planning, these same landscapes can become models of recovery. In the end, our work is more than about the trees. It's about renewing the connection between people, their communities, the forest, and the resilient future that they share together. And with that, keep all the questions. You can just snag me to the side because I know we have announcements and lunch coming. So thank you.
Great job. Laura, wherever you are, there you are. Oops. Oh, wrong one. Sorry, false alarm. It got closed. Give me 1 sec.
Do we want to do a Q&A?
Yeah, if we got time for that, I was just wanting to make sure you.
We can take
Yeah.
the networking time and parlay it into Q&A.
Yeah. Okay. Here you go. There's your first one. And you're good.
Thank you so much, Will, and thank you to all of our presenters. Yeah, I have quite a few thank yous actually as part of the announcements to the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, who has been a wonderful partner again this year, to DGI and to our sponsors, NV5, who has provided lunch, which will be delicious. It's 3 Ps, box lunches. So we really appreciate that support, and be sure to fuel up on some coffee out there as well. That was provided by Seiler Geospatial. So we really appreciate those partners that allow us to help create a day like today for all of you and for ourselves too. Some opportunities I wanted to share, some opportunities to keep fostering this awesome community that every time we have an in-person event or even online, we get a chance to connect. I'm reminded about how powerful we are and about how fortified we are as a state community. And this is just such a nice opportunity to grow that, to continue it. So I wanted to mention that there are lots of ways to get involved with the Kentucky Association of Mapping Professionals and the Kentucky GIS community. One of which is to reach out to me and help plan events like this. Our quarterly meetings are put on each year by our Professional Development and Education Committee, and we are always accepting members. I also want to mention that we have our statewide Kentucky GIS conference coming up this year. It's in Lexington, Kentucky, so not far down the road from here. We will be meeting September 29th through October 1st. There's always an opportunity for a day's worth of workshops, there's socials, and then there's a lot of rich content like there is here today. Registration will open on June 1st, so be on the lookout for that. We're also taking sponsors and exhibitors still, so be sure to check out the Kentucky GIS Conference website linked there on that QR code. Oh, there's information about exhibiting. If you want to represent your company, you can reach out to Charles Aldendorf. He's sitting up front as our Zoom maestro. I will also mention that we have a scholarship that we give out at this conference. Well, multiple scholarships for undergraduate and graduate students who are doing amazing GIS work. So we encourage you to, one, reach out to students in your life who are doing cool GIS work and encourage them to apply. And two, consider donating to that pot of money that we provide to them each year. The passive slides during lunch and in all this in-between time will have QR codes to all of that information. You can also go to KAMP's website and find that info pretty quickly. I completely forgot that I had done these slides, but we we really appreciate our planning partners and we really appreciate our sponsors. Yes, Keith.
I was putting as far as our student scholarship, we also have side option and raffle, and donating money directly is not for you. Contact me about either items that you might want to donate, and that's another good way to help out on scholarship.
Thank you so much for that. I think we're going to pivot and take the last few minutes of what we set aside for networking for some questions and answers with the folks who presented, if you all are open to that. I think it would be a good opportunity for us to all kind of share what we're thinking about, ask questions, and then we'll move into lunch a little after 11:30, so we have some time for, yeah, I think probably we'll do 15 minutes of Q&A, so lunch at 11:40 for those of you who are hungry. I'll pass it back to you, Will, if you're up for it.
Okay. If you have questions, raise your hand. Emily is here and she's happy to hand the mic.
Super happy. I just need hands to go up.
So I've got one for you, Meg. I'm in a new role and part of it is focused on data and standards and that sort of thing. And I love the structure that you put in place and the discipline to that. So could you speak more about how you got from when you walked in the door and it's 120 unique independent fiefdoms to how you negotiated that? Sorry, Emily, you're doing. How you negotiated that to really bring people on board?
Yeah, well, some of them are not yet on board.
Okay.
There wasn't any standards set before reapportionment. And so depending on whether it was someone locally or, in their office or their ad district, things were just done sort of however they felt like it. A lot of it had, a ton of census data attached to it. So we just, sat down, figured out what do we really need? What is just the basic categories that we need, precinct code, precinct name, county name, state and county FIPS codes. And we used the combination of the state and county FIPS code and the precinct ID to create unique identifiers. And that's going to form the basis of what they need to use going forward for PEOs and for the next reapportionment cycle. So when they do this again, when they send it over. And I'll tell them, you can add whatever fields you want to add behind all of these fields. I don't care what you add, but leave these fields alone. Populate these fields. You know, they're county drop-down boxes. The FIPS codes have drop-down boxes based on the county name, you know, so that that information stays uniform. And then that way, as things change coming in, it's just basically plug and play. We make sure, you know, we run through topology again to make sure that everything lines up. But then it can be published and ready to go for folks to use.
Great. Thanks. Charles.
This may even be above Meg's head here, but this, I guess the interesting dilemma I think that comes up with this decision about precincts and of course county boundaries is waterways changing over time, and how does that get reflected in the legislation? Because my understanding is these precincts are supposed to be legal. Right. So I guess if you had any other commentary on how you deal with certain legalities surrounding changing targets a little bit.
Yeah, right now, you know, if it's a precinct boundary within the county, ideally it's going to go to the water center line. And if the legal description is more vague, then we kick that back and have them be more specific. Are you going to the water's edge? Are you going to the water line? Because, you know, there may be some random person living on a houseboat. And we've got to figure out where they go. If that water line is on the state or county line, that's going to drive where that edge boundary should be. And again, if they're not clear in their legal description, it'll get kicked back. And they have to better define that. But there's just a whole process of it going through their county board of elections and the fiscal court. A lot of times they are just basically driven based on the picture the county clerk is. So as long as it's, you know, somewhat correct, then they're fine with it. But I have to have both that match. And that's why I'm not a particular favorite for some of these clerks, because I keep kicking their stuff back, asking them to be more specific. And there are legal precedents where if someone is on a boundary, because we have to go based on the structure, so based on where the house is, and there are some instances where a county line or a precinct line will split a house, there are legal precedents that decide, that give that resident an option. They get to choose which precinct they want to vote in. Once they make that choice, it's permanent. So there are legal precedents in place to make some of those calls. But as of right now, there's not enough geospatial language in the legislature, but we're working on that. That's a big project. That's part of, you know, I guess maybe phase 4, to get more language in there to really line out. We have to get the GX blessing to make sure that everybody is on the same page, working from the same data source. So.
That's all.
Yeah, it's also for Meg.
Oh. Okay, well, while Andrew's trying to get his microphone working, show of hands, who all's learned something this morning? Okay, good. Everybody else is napping. You ready?
I think so. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Wonderful. So my question is about precincts as well. In Louisville, we maintain precincts within our election center, and we also maintain a field in there for whether the precinct is dry, wet, or partially dry. How's that? How's that dealt with the rest of the counties, the rest of the state? I know we have wet, dry counties, dry cities within counties. Is that maintained within precincts, or how's that work?
That would just be an additional field, you know, that doesn't take into account what we need it for. So that would just be, you know, a supplemental field that they can add to, you know, the other side. But yeah, whether they want to be dry or wet, that's up to them. But yeah, our only concern is where is the structure located? Where's the next gen 911 point located? That's what we utilize a lot of times. And we have to be careful with that on the edge of PSAP boundaries, because it might be placed in a driveway when really the house is in a different county. So, but yeah, that's just more of a supplemental field that the counties can add if they want to.
Cool. Thank you.
So the first map I ever made as a public servant was mapping the counties to wet, dry, or moist for economic development. So.
In terms of the wet, dry thing too, okay, there's a business process right now that when we if we can't attain that level and we can get that data across the state, alcoholic beverage control needs to know that. And right now you can order, liquor online. Okay. There's issues with that. And there's issues with the people who sell it. There's issues with ABC. So, what she's doing is the first part in us getting to a data set that will help drive the business process at Alcoholic Beverage and Control.
Good. Okay.
And sorry, I've got one more question for Meg. I know it's, a few years in the future, but for the next major round reapportionment, kind of what are the resources that are going to be available to those county clerks, county GIS people and ads to make sure we're doing this process consistently ahead of time?
Once I get everyone finished, so hopefully by the end of this summer, I will be sending out to the county clerks, to their GIS staff, and to the ads, template FGDBs, basically. So you have the basic format, you have the domains already in there. So really, it's just, it's plug and play. So that's the plan.
I've got something to add to that. One of the things that we did for utility data specifically is we actually created through COT, they have a website interface where utility companies can get their own COG account, and we put utility template file geodatabases on those sites. So that's a distribution method that you might be able to use, because then they get their own login, and what they give to you is also secured to their login. So something to consider.
Good. Other questions?
We heard, this is Rebecca, will be for you. So just as a heads up. I think you've talked to some of it in your presentation, but we heard from Boyd and from Meg talk a lot about like the people side and building trust in whether that's trust in making decisions, leadership or whatever, or trust with the public. And you talked a little bit about how the process that you went through really helped your conversations with the public. But I'm curious if you see any data points or any conversations around how that helped you build trust as well.
As far as trust goes, as we all know, it's a give and take. You have to be involved, you have to be a partner. The beauty of a lot of the KDF's work that they do is they have these established programs and they've got a history where they can show decades of working with other people. And so that builds a lot of trust with them in general. But then meeting them where they are, like the hardest part is reaching them initially. So one of the things that they did is they went to all the public extension offices, going to churches, going to local fairs, farmers markets, meeting them where they are, because if they don't know who you are, they're never going to find you if they don't know you exist. And so from there, it stems to, okay, they have their information, and then it becomes, all right, we're going to come, we call you, we're going to come to your property. What day works for you? It's always about the landowner every time they go. And then whenever they're filling out any of the management plans, that whole on-site survey that the forester is doing on-site, that is all about asking questions to the landowner. What do you want? Do you want us to, if we have infestation, do you want us to chemically treat, or do you want to stay organic? So like, it's always based on what they want and their desires and needs. And we've found, just historically, people are more engaged when they know they have a voice in it. So, yep.
Very good. Anything else? One more question? Okay, so we've got a little bit of networking time, and please don't stampede down, but we're going to have lunch. It's being served in 109, which is down the second hallway to the back right. And then seating is kind of continue on around to the back left corner of the area in 118 and 117. Okay, so hopefully lunch is set up It is good, awesome. So we can calmly egress. We don't need a safety issue, but also take the opportunity to have conversations with each other. Thank you.
Again, as Will said, I'm Rick Wallace. My job title, self-imposed or self-elected, is customer advocate. It's technically something else on paper, but if I'm doing my job correctly, it's being an advocate for those who we get the privilege to work with. And you know, I use another term that legal always corrects me about, and that is partner. Because again, I feel like we've had a long-standing partnership with the Commonwealth of Kentucky, the Office of Technology, and it is a privilege for the decades of opportunity that we've had to serve. And hopefully, again, just from the comments from the survey that was done, unbelievable type comments about how important this data is. And the 2023-24 program put Kentucky above everyone else on the map. I don't know if you know it or not, but we, NV5, were privileged enough to provide that statewide data in those 2 fly seasons. And boy, was it a monstrous task. And we'll talk more about that in just a couple of seconds. But we asked permission and got agreement to submit to MAPS. MAPS is an organization of companies in the industry that do what we do. And so it's you know, colleagues, if you will. It's our competitors. And sometimes I call them competimates, because when you win a big project, you need more resources. And you got to count on people that you know will deliver in the same way that you do. But again, we submitted this project, the Kentucky from Above project, to the MAPS organization, and we won 3 awards. You won 3 awards. We collectively won 3 awards. They were the award for data acquisition and processing project. It was the Members' Choice Award, meaning against all the other projects, all the other categories. And then we also won the Grand Award, which was and I called it the Triple Crown, fittingly, since we're here in Kentucky. But again, that is not us. It is us, the collective Kentucky, the Commonwealth, and everyone involved. So again, I just wanted to start with that. Talk real briefly, update you guys on who we are. And the reason for that is it's changed over time. We'll go back to the beginning of photo science in Lexington, Kentucky, medium-sized firm owned by Mike Ritchie, and doing a lot of work. We got canisters of film and so forth in the basement in our Lexington office, all the way through, you know, the digital world we're in today. We got bought right before COVID by a company called NV5 based out of Hollywood, Florida. They are a large engineering firm that does consulting engineer in multiple disciplines, and they wanted a geospatial arm of that company. So we became NV5 Geospatial Inc. That is our legal entity currently still. But a year and a half ago now, Acuren, another engineering firm, but they do mostly inspection and mitigation type work. They hang on ropes and towers and water towers and so forth, and bridges, and do inspections for mitigation. And you know, they were basically the same size as NV5. So that the 2 companies joined together. All 3 of the entity names, NV5 Geospatial, NV5, and Acuren, are still active legal entity names, but we're all one company in reality. So over 200 offices worldwide, 11,000 employees. But again, I'm going to concentrate on the geospatial piece of that.
And again, the geospatial practice, we are over 1,200 employees, geospatial employees. So that's probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest in the country. As far as that goes, we do work in all 50 states. Of course, Kentucky's my number one. Always has been, always will be, even though I live in North Carolina. But the capabilities of, we talk about acquiring, analyzing, which is processing, and then derivative type works. And then we also have a software group, and it's called ENVI, ENVI, and we sell software and produce data and application development, et cetera. So we have a whole EGIS portion of our geospatial firm as well. So we're more than just the base map products of LiDAR and imagery, but that is where we specialize. And even better, our center of excellence for that, for our entire company, is our Lexington, Kentucky office. So again, I go back to the whole pride about we and Kentucky. Not only is this data being acquired by MV5, but it's being produced in Kentucky, both the LiDAR program and the imagery program. So just a little bit about acquisition. We are heavily asseted on aircraft and other assets to collect data, all the way from you see a 70-foot vessel, which we collect bathy work in the ocean, and we also do it in the riverine arenas, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But we also have gear on backpacks, and we go do in-building scanning and BIM work. And we're doing a lot of that as it's becoming a part of the digital twin vernacular that you keep hearing about. That's not just the outside, but it's the inside and the outside. It's everything, as you can imagine, put into a geospatial realm. These are our base products that we've been doing for decades and decades: the LiDAR, the ortho imagery, and then photogrammetry, which is again the downstream derivative work from that LiDAR data and that imagery data to provide things like street center lines, curbs, gutter, everything you can imagine from a feature perspective. Anything that's got, I tell people, they say, well, what do you really do? I said, if it's got an X, Y, and a Z on it, we're pretty involved. So another service that we've been working on for years, but is one of kind of the newer things that's coming, and you'll hear a lot about this from the USGS recently, but it's bathy work, and we have the ability with a green laser to collect the sea floor or the riverine floor based upon the clarity of the water, because salinity and things in the water column will refract that laser and you won't get the bottom. But if the water's good and clear, we were getting 30 plus meters deep in the Florida Keys recently when we flew the coast of Florida for Florida DEP. But again, that's now you see the sea floor or the riverine floor, the ground LiDAR returns, and then get kind of a cross section. You see, so that's combining the topo data and the bathy data together to give you that kind of capability. Very quickly, just from a history standpoint, the last 25 years, this is the amount of topographic and bathymetric LiDAR data that we've collected US-wide. A heavy concentration in the Southeast, which is my territory. I have the 9 Southeast states to call on and work with. And again, my privilege to do that. LiDAR data, again, we are now in the third phase of LiDAR statewide here in Kentucky. And we utilize, at a minimum, we utilize that data for the ortho mosaic. So we drape the nice, beautiful imagery onto the DIM, which is created from the LiDAR data, which is very dense and very accurate. And again, as I said a minute ago, USGS is going to what they're calling next generation topographic data, and that is the marriage of the topo data and the hydro data. And you see the term 3D national topographic model. That is their initiative, and they're really driving in the same way that they did 3DEP, which is the Elevation for the Nation program that they had, where they were giving grant monies on top of local money to go out and get that data acquired and delivered. They are now doing that with a hydro as well, 3DHP, and combining that together to give a seamless data set for the topo. I don't think. NV5 has been leading the way with the USGS and helping them actually write their specifications through doing the pilot programs with them from a topobathy standpoint and from a bathy standpoint, putting boats into rivers and collecting, the floor. And, I recently did a presentation in South Carolina called What Lies Beneath. And it's important to understand what's changed in those waterways. Especially, you see the ports being remapped pretty consistently, but what about the rivers and so forth? And what now is there that wasn't there 40 years ago when someone dropped a chain in that water to determine the depth? What sediment, Mother Nature continues to and great presentation about the tornadoes earlier. She keeps hitting us, and it changes our earth, and we need to keep up with it. And this is what we've done in imagery. Again, look how blue Kentucky is. I'll just point that out, that out of that, 3.5 million square miles, part of that is Kentucky multiple times. And again, we're very grateful for that. Highlight this program that I mentioned earlier about the awards that we got for it. Get trigger happy there. Again, a massive project. It was one of those things that I think that 2-year period was about 10 years. For anyone who was praying it on a daily basis that Mother Nature would let us fly that day, because we had a lot of ground to cover, a lot of flight lines to accomplish, and again, the intellectual property and the work ethic of the team, both on all sides, was just phenomenal. And I couldn't be more happy to have been just a small piece of this great puzzle. Over 40,000 square miles, as you know, had to do it in 2 fly seasons, almost 1 million nadir images, over 3.5 million oblique images captured. We had 11 planes on the project at different times, obviously separated for safety and so forth, going back to the safety initiative. But again, key contributors, we had some competimates that were key into the process as well. But at the end of the day, that Lexington imagery team did things that they did not know how to do before this started. And I'll just say that again. Did not know how to do what they accomplished before this started. And that is a credit to the people from Kentucky that work in that office or work remotely into that office. This was the KY from Above Explorer that Kent talked about earlier. Maybe it's not needed, but it'll still be there. In the future, if people create their own Explorer version, hey, that's the beauty of this, is that it sits on the Esri stack. It's available and capable for some of the other integration. I'll talk about that in a second. Some of the beautiful imagery, kind of close to where you guys all live and know this better than I do, and some some pretty stuff too, depending on what team you pull for. But again, what's next? I talked about yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Well, what's next? Well, that high resolution oblique imagery and nadir imagery is really good for reality capture as we move forward into that realm. Things like 3D mesh, colorized point cloud. The DSM is already being done statewide and produced and available out there. But again, this is things that can be created from this highly accurate, exceptional data. And then as we move into the vernacular of digital twins, as I said a minute ago, this is, all kinds of applications really down to, what is on the earth, what and where is it, and where is it when I need to be addressing it, whether utility or what have you. So again, the LiDAR data, the imagery data, people are saying that's kind of old technology. It's not. It's continuing to evolve, and it's very usable. And the legislator has told us so with that appropriation. So it's a great thing. And just to further that, talking about, you see at the bottom scrolling, there's some of the feedback from the survey. And again, we're envisioning a new version of the KY from Above Explorer, but there'll be more discussion about alternatives to that as well. But it needs to, be able to bring the data into your workflows, I think is one of the key aspects of that. And we are right there to partner with you along that way. So again, thank you for the opportunity to speak for a few minutes, and thank you for the partnership.
Thanks, Rick. And thank you again for fantastic data that we use every day. Got the right poop. That's why I'm not finding it. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to hear from Parks, and they're going to talk to us about this story map that they've produced.
Hi, everybody. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how GIS empowers us in state parks to help support our coworkers, the public, anyone that enjoys our state parks. So we are the GIS team. This is Josh Wentz. I'm sure many of you know him. He's been there forever. I'm brand new. Nice to meet all of you. Sorry. Yeah.
She's still on probation. That will be duly noted.
I may or may not see you guys next year. So some fast facts about Kentucky state parks. How many of you have visited a state park? Like Natural Bridge, Cumberland Falls? Yeah, I figure pretty much everybody. So we have 46 total sites. We have 17 resort parks, 19 rec parks. We got a couple other options. We got a couple long distance linear trails. We have over 49,000 acres, 1,500 buildings, and over 8 million visitors a year. We also have a variety of amenities on our parks. We have over 300 miles of trails, and lots of options for lodging, swimming pools, golf, marinas, whatever people are into. There's basically something for everyone at these parks. So here's just a little snapshot. Each of these trees is one of our sites, sort of spread throughout the state. There's a couple areas that are going to have to drive a little bit, but generally nobody is more than around 50 miles from a state park. And just to highlight a few of the parks that people might not know about, just real quick. One of them is Wycliffe Mounds over in Western Kentucky. This is a really cool historical site. It has a very cool museum there, and they have ancient mounds dating back to the Mississippian period. It's a very cool place to check out if you're ever way out by the Mississippi River. We have John James Audubon. I don't know if anyone's from Henderson or around there. But this is a very cool park. It's a very beautiful museum, the woodlands, the trails, a very cool place to go and walk in John James Audubon's footsteps. We have Lake Malone, which we have these very cool big twigs. There's one in this picture right here. There's a family of wooden giants, and those are really fun for anyone that comes to visit. There's all kinds of trails here, a campground, Rock Bridge. All of our lake parks are very fun to visit.
We have EP Tom. Anyone from Louisville? This is going to be familiar, hopefully. So this is a very unique one because it's right in a suburb of Louisville, but it has all kinds of options for, tennis, pickleball. There's a dog park, community garden, trails. This is a very cool place in the heart of a very busy city. And then one final one, just to chat about, Big Bone Lick. This is a very cool one because there are buffalo here. And they actually are sometimes sold off, but they do like keep some buffalo here at all times. You can go visit them. There's some really cool fossils in the museum, including a giant sloth that is highly terrifying. Definitely recommend visiting the little museum there. And I will turn it over to Josh to talk a little bit about what we do. So, here you go.
Good afternoon, everyone. So as Danielle mentioned, we are the GIS team for Kentucky State Parks. For the prior about 7 years or so, it was just me. And to be totally transparent and honest with you, I was barely treading water with GIS. As Kent mentioned earlier, I have a lot of other responsibilities that are non-GIS related. And I am thrilled to have Danielle on board. She joined last December, and she has been a real godsend. And we have started making strides in the area of using geospatial technology within state parks that I've been thinking about for years, and just didn't have the bandwidth to do. So really excited to have her on board. So just to give you a little bit of information about what we do. With the assistance of the Commonwealth Office of Technology, a lot of assistance from the Commonwealth Office of Technology, we manage an SDE enterprise database with over 100 feature classes and more than 30,000 features. Many of these features were initially collected in the field with handheld GPS units. There's a lot of credit to predecessors prior to me. Some of those folks are actually in this room today, who collected a whole lot of data, and we are starting to be able to reap some of the benefits from the field data collection that was done. So their efforts are very appreciated. You can see some of the different feature data sets that we have here to kind of give you an idea of some areas where we have features. We have things like boundaries, our park boundaries, property, land acquisitions, structures, all kinds of map locations for our recreational amenities on our parks. So it's a pretty large set of data that we have at our fingertips. So today, less field collection with handheld units. Now we are able to get a lot of the data that we need using the wonderful Kentucky from Above data that we have access to. So we use the heck out of the elevation and aerial and oblique imagery data sets that are available to us. And we're able to do a lot of data collection and QA/QC of our existing data using those data sets. So that has been really helpful. Now, we still go out in the field, and we have begun to also empower some of our field staff that work out at our parks with being able to collect data while they're out doing their job in their site. So we're starting to move into that. However, those data sets really help us because we can do it right from our desk. We have a relatively informal communication with our park staff across the state in order to capture new data or changes to data. We monitor our capital construction projects and maintenance projects in order to track changes to our GIS features through those. And then, as I mentioned, we capture a lot of the things in-house, the two of us, but we also rely on a lot of our coworkers who are working out in the field as well. Maybe. Oh, I see what I did. Let's see. So we're using Esri Field Maps and Survey 123 apps out in the field. I'll talk about that a little bit more in just a minute. And we're also accessing some geo-referenced CAD data to help build out some of our GIS feature data sets. And we also get some data from third-party spatial apps. A lot of our field staff are already comfortable using some third-party spatial apps out in the field, and they're able to send us GPX files or location coordinates that we can then integrate into our enterprise database. Okay, so one of the things that we do is we produce a lot of cartographic products. We do these to support both the public who visits the parks, as well as our agency staff and their day-to-day tasks. Most of our park maps were originally created in Adobe Illustrator. They are 20 to 25 years old, and they are ready to be overhauled. So we are in the process, now that Danielle is on board, of transitioning our park maps that we produce for the public from Adobe Illustrator to ArcGIS Pro. So wanted to show you one example here. This is a CAD data set that we received from Parks Consultant for a new campground or campground renovation. And so Danielle geo-referenced this messy CAD data, and she created a brand new map. So this will be the new map that's going to be handed out to visitors to the park, and also will help with people who may be trip planning ahead of time. So we're just working towards creating more beautiful modern maps for the public to be able to consume. We also produce a lot of internal static maps, if you will. And a lot of these are used just to help inform our coworkers within the agency. This is one area where I really feel like we're just scratching the surface on how state parks can use GIS. And in terms of informing our agency on decision-making, data-driven decisions, objective decision-making type of stuff. A lot of these internal maps support a lot of different areas within parks. Things like safety, property, law enforcement, marketing. There's a lot of different areas of parks that our GIS data can speak into. And we're moving into a phase of where we're trying to expand how we get these tools and this information into the hands of decision makers within the agency. I'd like to take a little bit of time to talk about a partnership that we have with Outer Spatial. Outer Spatial is a third-party vendor that Parks has a contract with. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of that work that was done many years ago to collect a lot of GIS data out in the field, Outer Spatial has taken a lot of our geospatial data and loaded it into this third-party app. This is an app that is free to use, and it's a very robust app and a new way to interact with visitors to the park and those who are doing trip planning to a park. So we supplied park boundaries, trails, and lots of different points of interest, and it's loaded into the app. So we have control over all the spatial data. There's a lot of apps out there that folks can use. A lot of them are crowdsourced. And with this, we have full control over all the geospatial data and all the information that's in here. So some of the app's many features include interactive park maps, trip planning tools, park passport digital badge challenges. It does support offline access for remote areas. There's a really cool social post feature where folks can share with other posts with other outdoor community enthusiasts. There is a QR code up there if anybody's interested in snagging that. So I would highly encourage you to check it out. It's in my opinion, it's fun even just to kind of play around with it on your phone. Wait till the meeting's over though. So anyway, check that out. And let's see what's next. Okay, so as I mentioned, we used Esri Field Maps and Survey 123 primarily for our field mobile tools. Some ways that we're using field maps. So we have a park boundary inspection program where our park staff goes out and they're annually walking our boundaries. They are looking for any potential encroachments or other issues that they may find along the park boundary. So they are using field maps now. For a very long time, they were using Juno handhelds. They're using field maps now to be able to go out and navigate to each of the points along the boundary that they need to check. And also they have the attribution information there to help them kind of locate the different points that they're looking for. We're using field maps pretty regularly for data collection while out in the field to continue to build out and improve our data. We're using Survey 123 for a lot of asset inspection type projects. One of those is we have a marine inspection program. As Danielle mentioned earlier, we have 14 marinas within state parks, and we annually go out. There's a group that annually goes out and inspects those, and we're using Survey 123 to capture each item that comes up on that inspection, and then very easily able on the back end to generate a report that we're able to give to the marina operator to help them. In the past, that was all done by hand. People were taking pictures on their phone, writing down things with slip number this, blah, 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 and they're having to match up photos and handwritten notes on the back end, and it was very messy. So our marine inspection team is loving this tool. So we're using it for various safety and hazard inspections. And we've also started to empower some of our field staff with the ability to collect some point data using Survey 123 while they're out in the field. And then we can incorporate that back in the enterprise database on the back end. All right. So for the future, as I mentioned, I feel like we're barely scratching the surface. I'm excited about the possibility of giving you this presentation 3 to 4 years from now, and hopefully we've taken some big steps. But just a couple of things that we're working toward here. We'd like to create more mobile tools for our park staff to help them increase their spatial awareness while they're out in the field, to improve our data collection and maintenance processes, and to better enable mobile asset inspections. As I mentioned, we're in the process of starting to migrate our park maps from Adobe Illustrator to ArcGIS Pro to help standardize and modernize our cartographic products, and also to reduce our spatial data redundancies. And then the final point there is just continuing to build out and better deploy our GIS data in order to improve our agency's ability to make spatially aware decisions, as well as generating data-driven insights for better strategic planning.
So thank you all for taking the time to listen to us. If you want to come visit, if you want to make a reservation, come out to our park, visit parks.ky.gov. It has all the information you need, and we look forward to seeing you.
Got like 1 minute, so yeah, if you don't mind, we'll wait for questions since we have 1 minute. We're not behind this time, but we'll do questions at the end. All right. So our next presenter is Jean-Luc. Turning data into direction, EEC GIS updates. Whoops. Takes a village. Okay, you're up and good.
Thank you. Sure.
So are we doing space or the down button? The down button. Okay. Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming out and listening to us talk about our multiple GIS facets and whatnot. I'd like to discuss some recent EEC GIS updates. We've had a reorganization and a couple of other things going on that I'd just like to touch on. So I've got a few points I want to bring up here. We've had a couple of app migrations that we've been working through. Server moves and updates. Servers are very important as we use those to serve out our REST services to you all. So I'm sure you've used services from water maps and sites like that. So we appreciate any feedback that you might have as well. I'd like to talk about the new GIS branch formation. This is a whole new branch for EEC, so we're walking into some interesting territory. We get a lot of leeway in the decisions that we have and what we make of it, so that'll be fun. And then lastly, I'd like to touch on some ADA stuff, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and some of the remediation that we went through. Okay, so app migrations, at the top of a lot of folks' lists are going from ArcMap to ArcGIS Pro, and hopefully a lot of you have been making those moves. As we know, it was supposed to be deprecated earlier this year. I believe the data's changed for ArcMap. However, we want to make sure that you can get onto Pro as easily as possible. So I could probably give a whole talk alone on Pro migration stuff, and I probably will in the future. But you know, just the short of it, we're around 90% finished with everything. Working with Esri on our future licensing. So right now we've just got viewers and creators in ArcGIS Online. And Esri has a newer system that allows contributors and other useful roles and user types of that nature. So we've been working into incorporating our current structure into the newer stuff. Another big topic has been Web App Builder. So Web App Builder had been deprecated, I believe, at the beginning of this year. It's been sunsetted. Everyone's been moving their stuff. We've mostly been moving things to Experience Builder. Seems to be a very easy translation for most of the tools. However, some of the tools we've ran into some issues with. We've been able to get with Esri to work through some of those things, but some of the widgets and stuff we just got to wait for. Unless you turn to the developer edition of Experience Builder, which I'm currently looking into. The third thing that I have here is the Esri Classic Story Maps retirement. This one was interesting. I'm sure that it had been brought to my attention before, but yeah, we got online one day and Division of Water reaches out to me and they say, hey, what happened to our story maps? So we got together a team with the GIS branch with the DOW members that joined us, and we worked on replacing a majority of those or just seeing if the content needed to be retired in general anyway. So we took what was a potentially negative situation, put a bit of a positive spin on it. And it was nice. Things went well, and we've been able to replace a lot of those products. And just an example of if your map has been retired, that's what you see. So yeah, we through a few different tools that we messed around with, like the Wayback Machine, and just kind of spot checking old documents and things like that for any information that we could find. We were able to piece together, the replacements for some of these things. And some people are still working through a majority of the replacements, but in most cases, it turns out they needed to update their maps anyway. So that's been nice. For server moves and updates, I don't know, do I have any other server administrators in the room? Raise your hand. Awesome, thank you. So EEC no longer has any 2012 Windows servers in relation to GIS production. I know COT definitely wanted us to take care of that, so we're happy to move forward. I will mention, however, I am going to be moving another server sooner than later. It's our water map server that is on a 2016 box. So, however, the other two GIS servers that we make good use of, GAPS GISN and EPPC GIS, they've been moved to a 2019 machine and a 2020 server as well, I believe. So that's nice. I like to refer to the ArcGIS servers as my Russian nesting dolls, because you have a web server inside of a server and you get to move many different components at once. It's always fun. We're currently doing research on updating our ArcGIS server versions. I'm definitely lacking in this department. We're still using some pretty old variants. The water map server is on 10.7, and 10.7 has slowly been deprecated. And we recently ran into an issue where we were looking into some support, and we just had to say, okay, we got to update this. We got to get this through, or else support can't help us. So I'm working on updating those. It should be a fine process, but yeah. I'd also like to mention we have implemented an ArcGIS monitor and are using it to manage and maintain our services and servers. Let's see. So here's the monitor interface. It's very fun to look at with all of its crazy colors and everything. I will say that it is what you make it, essentially. You get to set your variables, you get to set, what is a critical or what is a warning, things like that. So this was a screenshot from whenever we were still setting up the sample stuff and just messing around with it. I just wanted to see if it would spook anybody else, just throwing that up there. This next interface that you see here, it's showing alerts tied to our servers and services. You'll see we've got things that are tagged under production, or like we've got a terminal server up on there. It's, just listed as ArcMap users. We're able to use this software to tie into any of our ArcGIS enterprise related instances. So that's pretty nice. And my final screen for the ArcGIS monitor stuff here is just the general monitoring components that you can set up. We've been working with Esri on a GIS health check activity that came out of some issues that we had while we were working on another custom tool. And so while we were setting up the monitoring system and everything, I was able to identify a few issues, add some RAM to a server, and fix a few things. So that was nice. But this screen that you see before you is literally any of the services that you could access on our server. And yeah, it's just nice to have everything in one little bundle instead of having to reach out to 50 different boxes to see what's going on. For the branch formation, there's a new GIS branch within the Division of Information Services. The Office of Administrative Services, OAS, now has two sections. We'll have the Department of Environmental Protection and the Department of Natural Resources. Some of you may be aware, but I was recently promoted to becoming the GIS supervisor of Section 2. I have most of my section here with me, thankfully. They're wonderful supporters, and I appreciate all their hard work. But yeah, we're looking into forming the branch. We'll be looking into setting up standards, things of that nature. And the guiding factors were just centralization of development and the cost of operation. Alongside this this formation of the branch, we had to really take a look at our licenses, who all's really needing what. You know, maybe there's some instances where someone doesn't need desktop GIS, they just need an app that they can get their answers from. So we've been working with the different divisions and branches around the cabinet to develop things that they can use. And passing on here to the ADA information. We began work on modifying lots of GIS products. Before the deadline was pushed, we had like a month deadline to get things finished. Or else, you know, it was like, hey, we got a review. If it's not meeting the standards, we'll probably have to pull it down. Something along those lines. So thankfully, that deadline was extended for a year to April 24th, 2026, or 2027, I mean. And so yeah, that's been a huge pressure off of everybody. But we did a lot of great work in the short time that we were really rushing into things. And we learned that web mapping is very difficult to make accessible for folks. But you know, we were able to improve a lot of things and use the different tools that we have available to see where we can improve on those areas. So for example, this terrified me when I first pulled it up. This is the SMIS viewer, the Surface Mining Information System viewer. It's an older JavaScript web mapping application, and the Wave tool, or no, this was the accessibility insights for your browser. That tool did not enjoy these Java setups. It decided that, as you notice, each of those grids are their own images, and it was telling me that they all need alt text and the contrast and everything. And it's like, okay, clearly this tool was not built for web maps. So we were still able to make use of it, and we can still use it for spot checking different things. And one of the other useful implementations of this tool is the second number there is tab stops. So something that, you know, we were dealing with a lot is some people might only be navigating via keyboard. So you would set up your experience builder, and you could tell the tab order and everything, how you want it to go, and it just made everything a lot easier. And so we would use the tab stops to see if we would have any catches, if somebody would get caught in a box somewhere or a radio button caught them, you know. And so we've been able to just use feedback from that tool at least to help align those things. The Wave tool, which was our bread and butter for a minute. The Wave tool is very cool. It's very useful. I'm showing an example of a portal site that we host on one of our servers. So yeah, we use this tool for lots of different feedback. It'll tell you about contrast errors, if there's heading hierarchies that you're messing up somewhere, anything like that. And it gives you a nifty little score, and it'll tell you summaries of how you can improve certain things. So whenever we were first hitting the ground running on this, we really wanted to aim for a 9.5 out of 10 if we could. I know that sounds really high, but you'd be surprised at how this thing gauges its scores. So as you notice, I've been able to get our water maps portal site up to 9.6. So that's nice at least. And another thing that I want to touch on is statements. So I know that's a huge block of text, and I'm not going to read it out to you. I'm sorry. But yeah, essentially, you know, it came down to it of we've worked on trying to improve a lot of these tools, and there's just some software limitations right now. And Esri's working on a lot of things for Experience Builder and things of that nature whenever it comes to accessibility. So we set up an ADA statement, and you know, it essentially says we've got some limitations going on. You'll notice we link to the legal accessibility language that Esri has, and their conformance reports, if anyone's curious about those. And we also offer that if anybody needs another way to get this data into a more accessible format, then we're more than happy to help out. So yeah, we've got a general ADA compliance email, or we also leave in the web authors or the data owners into these statements. I feel like I read that really fast, so I apologize, everybody. But that is all I have for now. If you all have any questions.
We have time for questions.
Yeah.
Who set your own standards for the ADA compliance?
Excellent question. So the ADA remediation was headed up by our director, Alex Teets. And so he's been working with legal and a few other groups in the cabinet to try to get some groups and some standards set up. We don't have like a steering committee or anything like that set up yet, but it essentially was, we got given the deadline, we jumped on it, we just got a bunch of people together as a team to work on what we could. And it's not just GIS doing this, you know, it's a whole cabinet-wide thing. So I'm unsure about the other facets of the cabinet, but as far as GIS goes, there was a small team that disseminated the training requirements, things like that, through a SharePoint site that we set up, so that anybody else that needed to access this for the remediation, they could jump in whenever they needed. So we're still working out the kinks on the whole organization of the remediation itself, but thankfully we have a little more time to do so now.
Show of hands. How many people working in web or wherever are aware of the ADA work and are trying to reach compliance? Okay, good.
Yes.
Good.
Awesome.
Very good. Other questions?
You, sir.
Is that the Wave tool? Is that a subscription based or is that free?
The Wave tool is a free tool. The tools that I showed, so this Accessibility Insights, that's a free tool. It's just a browser extension that you click on. You can add it to your Chrome, Microsoft Edge, what have you. It's totally free to use. And the Wave tool is also free to use. So if you need any help finding out, where you can access these tools and stuff, I'd be more than happy to help you.
And on our website, we have an accessibility guide
Yeah.
for ADA that has all of the recommended tools and just kind of outlines what this new rule is for state and local governments that have to comply.
Yes. We'll say we used multiple tools just to get more insight, just because there's not something set up yet specifically for web mapping. And, we try to be good about things like, we deal with color blindness. So you might want to watch out for red greens, things like that. But there's a lot more to it than that. So yeah, get started on it sooner than later. I'll tell you that much.
Okay. Any other questions? All right.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean-Luc. Okay. Awesome. And last but certainly not least, Lucas. Speaking of another thing, Lucas and Noor just got married. Well, I think Noor had to step away. So let's give them a round of applause.
All right, well, my name is Lucas Graham, as you just heard. I'm here to talk about the oriented imagery layer that is out for usage right now. Just a quick outline of my presentation. We're going to go over what an oriented imagery layer is. Then we're going to talk a little bit about oblique imagery, just for everyone to be on the same level playing ground. We're going to talk about how to access the OIL, and then we're just going to look at some use cases and examples that I've cooked up. So, what is an OIL? At its heart, it is just a point feature layer. It incorporates like all types of imagery, as you can see on the left here, or yeah, your right, my left. It incorporates anything down from your mobile phone camera all the way up to aerial photography. So you can incorporate any of those into an OIL. What we're going to be concentrating on today is just the oblique imagery that we captured statewide. This does replace our oriented imagery catalog. So if you are currently using that, this is pretty much just an upgrade from that. So some of you may have already seen this slide. I think I've used it about 3 times now, but what is an oblique image? When they fly, they take a straight down shot known as a nadir. When they took that shot, they took 4 oblique images off of that nadir. With this image on the side, you can see that that nadir image only captured the top of the house. With those oblique images, you can really get a side profile of any sort of structure, house, hillside, anything like that. The point in which they took this photo is called the exposure point. This is the point that you use that the OIL uses. So when you turn on the exposure points, they are going to seem pretty far away from where the actual footprint of the photo is. But just know it's because it's taking it from that side angle. It's coming down. It will be offset from where your photo is. So where do you access it? Right now, we actually have it out on OpenGIS data. So if you go to our data portal, you type in oriented imagery layer, you type in oblique imagery, it'll pop up and be right there for you. We also have it out as a layer file on Box. Just note that both of these are actually filtered just for oblique images. The OIL does contain nadir images as well, but we have filtered both of these out to just show the oblique images. So when you're in use of them, you should only get the obliques. All right, let's look at some the fun stuff, the uses. So for this first case, I cooked up a small sample thing from AML. So let's say you're looking at a complaint side at AML, and you have your complaint here, and then they're complaining about some drainage that could be from possible mining portals. So, okay, that's a good plan. So we have our drainage up here. You can kind of see some divots in the hillside. You're not quite sure what they are. So we're going to turn on our imagery layer. We still can't quite tell what they are. So we're just going to go ahead and use the layer file of the oriented imagery layer, bring that in and see if we can get a side profile and maybe really see what those are. So once you bring it in, if you click on your dot layer there, you'll see a new tab pop up, your oriented imagery layer. You click on that, you click on your map, and in the side panel, the images will just pop up. If you don't have that panel, I already have my panel open, but if you don't have it open, it'll automatically pop up just like any geoprocessing tool. And so as you zoom in here, you can really see that these structures do look like mining portals. They do have an inlet into the hill. But just to make sure, let's go ahead and turn on some layers, our coal beds, our mine dot seams on our map. That seems to line up pretty well, but why don't we just turn them on our oblique images as well? So with the OIL, you can actually use any of your own layers on these oblique images now in Pro. And for all the tools I'm about to show, these are related to Pro, but every single one of these tools is also on AGOL. So when you use this tool on AGOL, all these tools are also integrated into those experiences as well. So I'm not going to go over the tools in every single experience. Just know that these are all there as well. So we have our height above ground, our ground measurement. Here's a full suite of our measurement tools. The triangulate tool is a little wonky right now, so be wary of when you're using that. But it is a much better experience now because the images are right above each other when you're using that tool, if you've used it in the past. The navigation arrows are back, so you can move from photo to photo. I know people were mad when that went away on our original, on the Explorer. We have the image gallery, we have image enhancement, so now you can change the sharpness, the brightness on those photos right from your pop-up. In the image gallery. All right, let's talk about ArcGIS Online. So for this example, we're going to look at Webster County. We're going to make up just a quick web map that incorporates parcel data and NG911 points. So let's start making a web map. So I'm just typing in here for my NG911 points, going to drag those in, and then drag in my Webster County parcel data as well. Then we're going to go ahead and zoom in on Webster County, just kind of pan around a little bit. I can see that I probably need to work on my labels a little bit. They're kind of overlapping each other, but we're just going to keep panning around and see how things look. And we're stopping at the school here. And I want to know what school this is. Well, I could bring in, my school data points. Why not just bring in the oblique imagery and take a look around at the school and see if I can find any signage. So in a web map viewer, you can actually use these three little dots, click on those, and immediately get to your oriented imagery in a web map. You don't have to do it in an experience builder. You don't have to do it in an Instab. You can do it directly in a web map. So as you can see, all those same tools that we were looking at in Pro are still there. I'm just going to change my orientation here. And you can see how crisp these images are. You can actually see that this is Webster County High School written on top of the building there. And I'm going to change my orientation one more time, maybe pan around to a different image. And let's say that we're going to be using this in an emergency situation, and the first responders know exactly what NG 911 point they need to go to in this building. We can actually turn those on this oblique image in the web browser as well. So let's say you're done configuring your web map and you want a more refined experience. So we're going to move towards instant apps. Luckily, there's two instant apps that already have oblique imagery, the oriented imagery configured into it. We're going to use the sidebar because we don't have any 3D data yet, but we're going to use the sidebar for this one. So here's my new sidebar instant app. Again, zooming in on Webster County. And we're going to focus in on this downtown section here. So just going all the way to the side here, opening my oriented imagery, clicking anywhere on the map. And it looks pretty good. I mean, it's high quality, good imagery. We're going to turn off some of these overlays that automatically got turned on after we switch our orientation here. And, looking at the parcel data on the map is fun, but why don't we look at our parcel data on our obliques? So let's just go ahead and turn that on as well. And you can see that parcel data falls pretty accurately onto the oblique there. You can see it especially down the street there. So congrats, you did it. You made an instant app. You got it done, and it only takes about configuring that whole app maybe took 30 minutes from web map to finished app. So you need to go outside after you've done all this work, right? You go take a break. Then you remember there's actually like a new park being opened right next to your house. There's the old Duckers golf course that's being converted into a county park. And you're thinking, well, there's even a new bar at the end of that park. So why don't I walk from my neighborhood to the new bar? But you don't know how to get from point A to point B. Luckily, you and your wife are complete map nerds. So you made your own experience builder for this exact process. So here is the Rockies Duckers golf course trails. This actually includes not only the obliques, but also some of the phase 2 derivatives that we were talking about, our elevation profile. So if you start clicking on these trails, you can actually see the elevation change across that line, and you can keep adding those up. So this is the path I'm taking from my neighborhood to Rockies. And as you pan across that elevation profile, you can actually see on the dot where you are for each of those elevations. So you can see how far it takes and what the height difference would be. But I also see that this bridge might have a problem with it. So why don't I just go ahead and take a look at that on the oblique imagery. Zoom it in here. I see this bridge does have a giant gap in it. So I'm going to use the oblique imagery to maybe pan around and see if I can get from point A to point B around my current destination. And the reason I wanted to show this experience builder, this was built in me and Nora's own AGOL. So this is all using just publicly facing data. So not the OIL's public facing, the elevation data is all public facing. The only thing that we had to physically make was just the trail lines, which we used our aerial imagery to draw and put on a map. So, well, let's say that you're out here and you walk up to that bridge and you don't want to cross it and you didn't know about it. Well, in Experience Builder, you can still use the oblique imagery in a mobile setting. So this is just the same kind of app, zooming in here. I'm going to click down and pull up the oblique imagery. I will give you a fair warning. If you are on bad cell service, these images are very big. So it does take a minute to load, but luckily I was at home on Wi-Fi when I captured this, so it loads up pretty quickly. And you can see it's very, I mean, the quality is still there. All the tools are still there, even on the mobile version. So this is my Esri bashing slide. I'm sorry to the Esri refs that are here. Polygons, when you have them on a map, can only show one symbology. So if you have a polygon layer that has multiple symbology, you have to slip it. You have to put it back to a simplified one symbology. Polygons also do not accept any transparency. If you put transparency on your polygon, when you put it in the oblique, it'll show full force. It will not show at all. So one thing I've learned for the polygons for transparency, if you really need to see underneath them, there's lots of good symbology that has the cross hatches with the dots or anything like that. That'll give you both the polygon and let you see underneath that polygon a little bit. Some of the layers do not appear on ground. They will be very far off. We have not been able to find any rhyme or reason on which layers work really well and which layers don't. We're still investigating. So as you guys play around, if you find anything that might, cause that, let us know. And there is some slight performance issues or differences between Pro and AGOL, even with the layers that work. Like if they might work in Pro, then you move them over to AGOL and they might move on you. Some of the layers even work really well north to south, but when you start going to east and west directions, they start to skew off a little bit again. So yeah, those are the known problems. My whole thing is, go out and explore. There's lots of really cool things in the state. Tim Rader was helping me from AML to get that AML example up, and he showed me this, and I think it's something right out of the Goonies. It's 2 eyes and a little mouth with a waterfall coming out of it. So there's lots of really cool things to explore in the state, and the more people that use the tool, maybe we can get more attention from Esri to fix some of these issues that we've been having, and we can, really make this tool everything that it can be. And then I said that we don't have 3D data yet. I cooked this up in about 15 minutes. This is actually the oblique viewer in a 3D scene. So you can actually see, I guess, me beaming down on the Capitol here. I think it's a really cool example of how that orientation comes down from that oblique. So it does really come off from the side. And if you zoomed out a little bit, you can actually see where the exposure points were floating in the air as well in the 3D scene. So if you have any questions, our Explorer help page actually has everything for our integrations across all of these, and we're updating that constantly on any new things that we have. And I will be happy to take any questions that you guys have. I think I kind of blew through that a little quickly, but
Very efficient, Luke. Questions?
Great presentation, Lucas.
Thank you.
So I know that you mentioned some slight performance differences between Pro and AGOL. Which one would you say you've had better luck out of?
I personally like using it in Pro. It's a lot more responsive, and then adding and removing layers is a lot easier in Pro. Anything that's in your contents automatically works in your sidebar as a layer that you can bring in. In an experience builder, you do have to configure that layer to be used in the oriented imagery. You just have to turn it on. So if you're really just wanting to experiment with layers, I would say go with Arc Pro. And just for reference, Arc Pro, this is all done in Arc Pro 3.6. This is the newest version. If we do have some guidance on lower versions, but that uses the oriented imagery catalog. If you're planning to use the oriented imagery layer, 3.6 is definitely the way to go.
Okay, thank you.
Everyone's trying to hand me a microphone. This is kind of a comment / question, I guess. I really like that elevation tool you had on the trail. As part of my master's project, one of the sample maps I saw was, I believe it was called Go Cycling was the website, and they had everything for like all the cycle routes in Wisconsin that way. Where did you get the background data for that, and do you see that being added in more services as we go forward? Would that be something that gets integrated in the Park Service? Or?
That's a full wide data set that we made from KY from above. So that's out. That's been out for almost a year now, I would say. It's been out there. I'm sure if you search on the Open Data Portal, it'll pop right up. Yeah, I mean, it works with any layer file. You can even, I think, click on the map and it'll give you the elevation of a particular point. It's a pretty slick little tool.
Want to say that again?
The KY Adventure mapping tool, all the trails and everything in there, it works with that. And I think it may be in Fish and Wildlife's site too. But there are two, there's a phase 1 and a phase 2 elevation layer published to ArcGIS Online for the entire state. So you can do that with anything.
So yeah, any of your own lines will work with that.
I was going to ask, you have the KY from above oblique viewer with the feature classes turned on and all that. Can you put that inside of a layout?
That's a good question. I've never tried. I would assume not, because layouts only work with map feature layers. I don't think they have anything for layouts for the oriented imagery itself. If you were going to do something like that, I would imagine just take a screenshot of it. I don't think there's any capture tools that are built into the oriented imagery.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Other questions?
It also connects to the audio for the folks online.
So you were talking about viewing a layer in your oriented imagery, but if I wanted to digitize a feature based on the oriented imagery, can I do that within that oriented imagery viewer? Or
there is no digitation, yeah, thank you, of those of that and that right now. There's not even a drawing tool that used to be in our old Sandboard view. You had a drawer tool, you can bring it out to a shapefile. That's still not around yet. Looking for, expansion on for that kind of stuff. We've had a lot of people that want that.
Okay.
There is though, when you're in Pro, there is a tool that lets you put a point on the oriented imagery and it'll appear on your base map. So you can do it both ways. You can put so just a point though, you can't draw a polygon or anything, just the point, and then it'll appear on your base map.
So we got a question chat. Stephen Knuckles says, I recently noticed there is now a plugin for QGIS to pull imagery. Are there any plans for further QGIS support development?
I was unaware of any QGIS plugin, so I guess we'll have to look into that. And yeah, I don't know if you knew anything about that yet.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of the plugin, but I mean, I've been using all of these products in QGIS for years. So whether you're talking about the cached base maps, you're talking about the dynamic imagery, all of that, it works beautifully in QGIS.
Latest release had native support. Latest release of QGIS has native support for stack. So
good. Other questions?
In the future, do you foresee analysts being able to use like image analysts, like geoprocessing tools on these obliques, anything like that?
I would say not, because they're not tied together. So you'd only have to you'd be a very small area that you would have to do analysis on, and I don't see that being something that you would want to do on such a small area. Yeah, they're not stitched together in any way. So,
thank you.
Anything else? Again, my compliments on being so efficient.
It helps if you chug an energy drink right before you talk.
I just learned a great secret. So, for all of your presenters next year, chug your energy drink. Then you can go. We may have to slow down the video for those online. There might be a buffering issue, but so again, a round of applause.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. So we finished the formal presentation part, but this is also an opportunity for not only peer-to-peer collaboration, networking, et cetera. So don't just take off and bolt. But I'm also very interested in feedback about what went well this go round. We're going to do a survey, which I need to bring up. Glad whoever was yelling at me mentally reminded me. But we want to get your feedback. But also, I just like open dialogue. So do y'all have recommendations, suggestions, things you didn't see that you want to see, more of something that you did see? That will be useful to us. Okay. Because we create this gathering so that we can learn from each other and we can grow. And I know I've learned a lot today. And hopefully we've shared. One thing I will say, a theme that I heard multiple times was building trust. And I think that's critical, not only us working on what we do, but when you're talking to leaders in your organization or with your local community, we need to use that term. Because if all we talk about is data and metadata and the criticality of metadata, we're not helping them understand about trust and rebuilding that within our communities, and then again serving that information up efficiently and effectively. So I would encourage that as you go along. Feedback for those of us that work on trying to put this thing together. Comments? Snide remarks? Nothing? Anything online, Andrew? Nothing. All right. So, yes, Rebecca. Oh, you got it, Emma. Sorry.
Yeah, something I've always encouraged other people to do, and you've seen it already, is I like seeing the context, the history of how something comes to be. So Meg's talk of how she's taking that data layer from where it is now to where the plan is to be, and it's not finished yet. So a lot of times people hesitate to ever present because something's not completely done. Trust me, it's never completely done. There will always be changes. But I love the state of the state, and it's one of the first, I think, meetings I came to for camp before I was officially a professional doing it, because it gives me context for the data and it tells me new things I don't know is out there that I could start pulling in. So anyone who works at least in the state of the state, like if there is a data set that you don't think people are using, give a talk about it and they'll start using it. And that's also how we know to talk to other people of when they say, well, where did this data come from? Who made it? How good is it? Where's the trust? Like you can give them a history of it and you have the notes. So that's what I would ask for. And the other thing is if we record them, would love to see this where we can see these recordings and access them going forward. Because then you're like, I don't remember that particular detail. And you can go back to that recording. Let's say Charles might.
These do get posted on the camp YouTube. It may take us a week or so to edit to make sure it's up there, but last year's is up there. So, yeah, for future reference for everyone.
And again, that's highlighting something I know for us in the cabinet. We've been doing GIS for quite a while, and we think we've told everybody, but you get a new generation, or somebody just missed the email or whatever else it is. So repeatedly putting information out there, letting people know, that's the way you get traction to be able to drive your organization and what you're doing. So, other comments? Got some? No? Yeah? Yeah, okay. All right.
Let's test. Good job, guys. Great presentations. Thank you all for your effort all around. From the chat.
All right. Thank y'all. So don't bolt and run. It's not a safety concern. Take a minute. There's probably still some coffee and half and half you can drink. Oh, we want to do a picture of the presenters. If you don't mind, come up on stage and Camp wants to do a picture for social. So thank you all very much.